Great. Good evening. Welcome to the September 8th regular meeting of the Hillsborough Town Board of Commissioners. I won't read the public charge, but it is in the printed agenda for your information. Sarah, do we have anyone signed up? Okay. Denise, come on up. You got 3 minutes.
Sorry. Can you hear me? No? I have a lot of mouth, I don't have to.
It's okay. We'll do our best.
Do I need to take my shoes off?
That's
Okay. Good evening, my name is Denise Akins. And I'm here today not just as a resident of Hillsborough, but as a 4-time cancer survivor. My journey began in August of 2018 with a breast cancer diagnosis. Thanks to ongoing screenings, doctors discovered I had developed kidney cancer, melanoma, and COPD. More recently, I experienced a reoccurrence of breast cancer, again caught early because of regular screenings. I never would have known otherwise without those. So cancer doesn't discriminate. It affects our neighbors, our coworkers, our loved ones, and sometimes ourselves. In Hillsborough, breast cancer rates are above the state average. That's not just a statistic, that's someone's mother, father, sister, brother, daughter, son, or friend. That's me. Here's the hopeful truth. Awareness saves lives. When people know the signs, understand the risks, and have access to screening, outcomes improve dramatically. Early detection can mean the difference between a treatable diagnosis and a devastating prognosis. Awareness isn't just medical, it's emotional. It empowers people to speak up, seek help, and support one another. As a town, we have the power to foster that awareness, especially among underserved communities. We can make cancer awareness part of our public health conversation. By painting the town pink with banners throughout the month of October, Hillsborough can stand for science and evidence-based public health in the same way LGBTQ+ banners stand for inclusivity. Breast cancer awareness opens the door to conversations about whole body health and other health conditions. We can encourage preventative care, early detection, and community support. We understand that Duke Power will want to approve this initiative, and we're proud to say that Duke Power has been a supporter of community health and the American Cancer Society. We also believe we can raise the funds needed to purchase the banners through local partnerships and grassroots support. We need, sorry, I am so sorry, some allergies are killing me. This need cannot be overstated, especially since the fall of Roe and the negative impact on women's health. Now more than ever, we must ensure that women have access to information. Let's be the kind of community that doesn't just react to cancer, but works together to prevent it, detect it early, and support those affected every step of the way. Thank you for your time and for your commitment to the health of Hillsborough. At this time, I am pleased to introduce Richard Everett, Executive Director of the American Cancer Society, serving Central and Eastern North Carolina. Richard brings a wealth of experience and insight into the critical role breast cancer awareness plays, not only in saving lives, but in opening the door to whole body health. He will speak to you today about how awareness initiatives can serve as a gateway to broader preventative care and how Hillsborough has a unique opportunity to stand out across the triangle as a leader in supporting science-based community health. This is a moment to elevate our town's commitment, and Richard's perspective will help illuminate that path forward.
Thank you. Welcome, Richard. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, my name is Richard Averett. I'm the Executive Director of the American Cancer Society for Central and Eastern North Carolina. I actually live in Raleigh. Thank you for the privilege of your time. As many of you know, the American Cancer Society, our mission is real simple: to end cancer as we know it for everyone. We do that through research, patient support, and advocacy. And a lot of folks think about the American Cancer Society, they may think it's this big brand like Apple or Starbucks or Coke, but the money we raise stays local through our research with our partners at Duke and UNC, through our Road to Recovery program, which is a volunteer program that takes cancer patients to their treatment. You can imagine it could be some kind of socioeconomic barrier, or you may not have a significant other to take you to your cancer treatment. Well, Road to Recovery does that. And also advocacy. We're the largest lobbyist group for Medicaid expansion a couple of years ago. And right now, quite frankly, we're fighting to keep it. So whenever I meet a partner, I always ask them one question. Can we think big? What if Hillsborough turned pink the entire month of October? 1 in 8 women will face breast cancer in their lifetime. Nearly every one of us knows a neighbor, a friend, or a loved one who's been impacted. By putting pink signs downtown, we spark conversations about early detection, we remind people the importance of screening, and we show survivors and families that Hillsborough stands with them. The benefits ripple outward. When downtown goes pink, it draws attention and visitors. Local businesses can join in with window displays and pink specials and fundraising tie-in. It's a chance to show Hillsborough as a community that not only thrives economically, but also cares deeply about its people. At very little cost, this town can take a leadership role, joining communities across the country who shine pink in October. And when people see those signs, they know that just about awareness. It's about action. It's about Hillsborough standing up to say, hey, we care for our neighbors, we fight for survivors, and we honor the lives touched by breast cancers. And I want to leave you with 2 numbers. Number 1 is 43. According to your last census, that's the average age of a Hillsborough resident. That's also the age when we should start breast cancer screening, colorectal cancer screening. And the final one is 81. 81 cents of every dollar raised goes to our mission for the American Cancer Society. Thank you for the privilege of your time.
Thank you very much. On to number 3 on the agenda, changes and approval.
And I have put forth a request to discuss the banners. I am a breast cancer survivor, 12 years. As you have heard from both Denise and from Richard, pink and breast cancer awareness, it's the opening door for health screenings. And with the fall of Roe, women's health and treatment and insurance has been damaged. Just as, and I agree, just as our pride flags really signal our diversity, they attack on science, the attack on women's health. This is a huge stand, but it's also one where we take action. There is action for fundraising. There is action for support. I actually have done Road to Recovery as a driver. We've all been impacted, but as Denise notes, once you start that detection, it's not just one health condition. It is whole body health. And again, especially with the fall of Roe, the American Cancer Society is often the only access, and especially for women of color. And breast cancer does affect men. And that's something, it's growing. And that's something no one talks about. And the more that we can normalize and destigmatize, that's an incredible burden on families, caregivers, when you can't talk about what is causing you to face your expiration date. So I feel strongly about us including this in our rotation.
Thank you. Or any other changes to the agenda? So do we have a motion to accept the printed agenda as is, or to add the proposal from Kathleen?
I am moving to accept the amended agenda.
We have a motion.
Do a second or a motion?
We're looking for a second.
Second.
Okay, second from Evelyn. Any more discussion? All in favor of the agenda as proposed? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Yep, thank you. And I will suggest we put that at the end after we've, done these big things first. So this would become 7F.
Thank you.
Okay. And moving on to number 4, presentations. We have 2 presentations this evening. The first is a proclamation declaring September 8th through the 14th, 2025 as Orange Rural Fire Department Week. So, and Eric is signaling to me that I'm gonna do that.
Okay. I do want to recognize that, President Steve Summing from Orange Rural Fire Department and Chief Jeff Cave are here, and I think there's some other representatives also from Orange Rural.
Okay, thank you. Are there any, I'll tell you what I would like to do is to come forward and read this proclamation and Eric, is there anything you would like to say before we get started?
Oh, I think the proclamation will cover it.
Okay, it does. It's good. Okay, all right. So Chief Cave, if you, anybody else in the fire department would like to come up? Got some hardware here and the proclamation declaring September 8th through 14th, 2025 as Orange Rural Fire Department Week. Recognition of continued excellence, courage, and sacrifice in serving Hillsborough and Central Orange County communities. Whereas the Orange Rural Fire Department serves an expansive 62 square mile district in Central Orange County, which includes Hillsborough and runs over 2,000 calls from 4 stations every year. Whereas Orange Rural provides an array of highly technical life-saving rescue services in addition to fire suppression, first responder emergency medical care, and hazardous material functions. These rescues services including trench, confined space, agricultural machinery, swift and water rescue, and structural collapse. And whereas the fire department goes above and beyond to help all in the community during their greatest times of need, and regardless of the situation. And whereas Orange Rural was quick to send multiple deployments of firefighters and equipment when Hurricane Helene devastated western North Carolina, September 27, 2024. For decades has regularly provided mutual aid to communities across the state during emergencies such as forest fires, floods, and other disasters. Whereas the fire department responded February 19th to a 50-car pileup with a fatality and injuries on Interstate 85 during the winter storm, were on the scene for 20 hours with limited assistance from other agencies and employed creative responses to prevent further loss of life and help those injured or trapped. And whereas Tropical Storm Chantal caused unprecedented flash flooding July 6th and 7th, Orange Rural ran 42 calls in 10 hours, formed a dozen water rescues, provided a boat and 2 staff members to help evacuate 50 people in Carver, assisted with clearing streets of downed trees, monitored water levels in Lake Orange, and handled many other critical tasks. And whereas during all emergencies, weather events, and preparation for a severe storm, the fire department always reaches out to town Hillsborough staff, offering assistance, resources, expertise, and availability, which is greatly appreciated by all the town employees, management, the mayor, and the board of commissioners. Now, therefore, I, Mark Bell, mayor of the town of Hillsborough, do hereby proclaim September 8th to 14th, 2025 as Orange Rural Fire Department Week in Hillsborough, to recognize the phenomenal service to our community from Orange Rural's board members, firefighters, support staff, command staff, and Chief Jeff.
It makes us all. Public Works bails us out, water bails us out, we're a community that helps each other. Being able to call Eric and Matt at any time, sending emails, I think it just takes the whole community to keep us all going, and the town employees and staff and the fire department, there never really seems to be a difference between us. We all just work together to get things done. Public Works has bailed us out a few times on some fire station stuff. So I think it's just teamwork, right? It's what makes it work.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Okay, and for our next presentation, interim police chief Jason Nguyen is going to teach us a little about Narcan.
So, kind of. So with it being, September, it's opioid awareness month. And we've been talking in the past about having some sort of, awareness or training when it comes to, responding to maybe somebody who's, taking an opiate or needs some sort of Narcan or naloxone. We actually brought in an expert. So we got Landon over here. Can you come up, please? He's actually gonna give the presentation on it. He's actually helped provide training to first responders. And he can give a much more in-depth training than I ever could, so.
Thank you,
I
chief.
don't think that's true. I appreciate it.
Chief, can we do a shout out though? But Orange County was one of the very, if not the first with the Good Samaritan law on Narcan and availability. So that's something that our community can be very proud of, and folks may not be aware of that.
Thank you.
Yeah, it is a kind shout out, sorry.
And for everybody else in the audience, part of the setup for this is, a couple of months ago, I witnessed an overdose and called 911 and witnessed it being administered for the first time. And I saw somebody who was unresponsive, turning blue, and then sitting up spontaneously. It was really a sight to behold. And I think we've all done ride-alongs with Hillsborough Police and also the Sheriff's Office. And I know that our officers administer Narcan on a regular basis.
Actually, it happened on my ride along where we were there before anyone else took 3 hits.
So it's good to, to help take this opportunity to promote the use of Narcan and the importance of it. So welcome, and go ahead.
Thank you. Before I get started, I just wanted to quickly tack on to that because we actually, as a county, and I think just to echo what was said before, that, it takes numerous departments, it takes different townships, county organizations, but in outfitting law enforcement with naloxone as a joint effort throughout the entire county. I mean, it's been almost 11 years ago.
2013.
2013, yeah, exactly. So, yeah, and that's a testament not to us, but to everyone involved in kind of that direction. So, thank you. My name is Landon Weaver. I'm the Bureau Chief of Community Health and Safety with Orange County EMS, and I also manage our post-overdose response team, which is why this is near and dear to my heart. And I appreciate you all and your attention and moving forward with trying to learn a little bit more about this. So what we're trying to accomplish today, it'll be quick. I've got it panned down to 15 minutes, which was a challenge for me, but bear with me. And just to hopefully have everyone walk out of here feeling comfortable identifying an opioid overdose, recognizing the legality of administering naloxone, which was already referenced. And then also knowing where to go to get naloxone if it's something that you are interested in or think would be beneficial to have. And also I have to make a shameless plug for our post-overdose response team for anyone who knows someone or may be experiencing opioid use disorder. So, and I'm assuming I can just click the buttons over here to change slides. All right, great. So the first thing I want to point out is that to kind of set some framework is a lot of people think of opioid overdoses as just this binary occurrence of someone took too much of an opioid and now they're going down this pathway and need intervention. But the reality is it depends on the quantity of a medication they took or an illicit drug that they took, the dosage that they took. And in reality, someone can land anywhere on the scale that we're seeing here. I point this out also because there are a couple areas in here that naloxone as an intervention is going to be beneficial to someone. And as you progress further down this line, there's going to be a territory where naloxone is actually no longer the best intervention for this person. One thing that bothers me deeply is that any naloxone or Narcan packaging that you see is never mentioned of someone might actually need CPR as opposed to naloxone. I think that's very important. We make sure that we educate everyone on that. So just to quickly go down what that process looks like, and again, you can end up anywhere on the spectrum. But the first thing that occurs is past the therapeutic dose is someone's breathing effort is going to start to decrease. Of course, they're not going to oxygenate as successfully. Typically how that's going to manifest itself originally is, a loss or a decrease in consciousness. And then it's gonna start affecting the brain to a further extent, the organs, that person's going to go into cardiac arrest, their heart is gonna stop functioning properly, and they're going to die. So as we get through this, I'll kind of reference back to this on where it is more beneficial for naloxone as an intervention, versus recognizing when someone actually needs CPR. So you'll see a lot of graphics such as this on, what are the signs of an overdose. You'll see a lot of attention pointed towards pinpoint pupils, for instance. In reality, none of this from a, memorizing all of this standpoint is really that important. If someone is unresponsive and they're not breathing adequately, that is a candidate for naloxone. And we'll talk about here in a moment why that is the case, and why it's not necessary to be bogged down with what these other presentations and signs and symptoms that someone might convey are. For the sake of treating with naloxone, simply being unresponsive or not responding appropriately, along with not breathing appropriately, are the indicators that you need to be in a good situation to give someone naloxone. So we're not diving into the weeds here, but I'm a very strong believer in knowing the foundation of how things work. And when it comes to opioids, the opioid molecule, as it travels through a person's bloodstream and it comes in contact with an opioid receptor, it has an affinity to bind with that receptor, and that's how you get the effects of any given opioid. So from a therapeutic point of view, that's going to cause someone to have a feeling of decreased pain or just a lack of concern about a pain that they might experience, that euphoric sensation. But of course, the more and more of these receptor sites that are bound with an opioid molecule is going to be when we start to progress down that pathway we mentioned before. A lot of people don't get educated on how naloxone actually works, but naloxone actually targets those exact same receptor sites. But naloxone has a higher affinity for those receptor sites. So if naloxone comes in contact with a receptor site that already has an opioid molecule bound to it, it's going to usurp and reject that opioid molecule and take over that receptor site. And it's not just that single action. As long as that medication, be it naloxone or Narcan, is in your system, it's going to prevent anything else from binding to that site. No opioid has a higher affinity to an opioid receptor site than naloxone does. So again, I think this is important to just understand what's happening. And the reason I think that's so important to convey is anyone who doesn't have any, medical experience, or, if you've never given naloxone before, there is some hesitancy in giving someone a medication. Could this actually cause an injury to this person? And the reality is that there's no way naloxone in and of itself can cause an injury to a person. So if you're wrong and it's not an opioid overdose, it's not going to hurt that person. It's just not going to have that beneficial effect on them. So I think that's very important to set as the groundwork of the safety of naloxone, and then again, just how it functions. The other big piece that we hear a lot is the legality of it. It is perfectly and completely legal in the state of North Carolina to administer naloxone to anyone who you have reason to suspect might be overdosing from an opioid, as we just described before. It's really as simple as that. So this is an extension of the Good Samaritan law. This is the same law that allows someone to perform chest compressions on someone, which again dovetails nicely into what we're talking about here today. And it's also important to point towards the naloxone access law, which recently, in the last, 2 years now, has allowed naloxone to be purchased over the counter at any given drugstore without having to interface with a pharmacist. Previously, you didn't have to have a prescription, but you still had to interface with the pharmacist. So this was another barrier that would prevent someone from actually accessing naloxone. So in the printouts that I have, we have links to our harm reduction site for the county. And it's an amazing resource, points you in a number of different directions, but it also has a direct link to this as well, if anyone is interested in it. As far as how to administer, nowadays, pretty much every time you see Narcan or naloxone, it's going to be in this exact presentation that you see here, which is effectively just an atomizer. So gone are the days of needing to pull out a syringe and actually jab someone in a muscle to give them naloxone. These are ubiquitous. You're going to find these everywhere. It's actually pretty challenging to find intramuscular naloxone these days. And the beauty of these is it's really ergonomic and self-explanatory. If you pop it out of the packaging and hold it in your fingers, just like you see here, all you do is introduce the nozzle into the nose, hold it there firmly and press the plunger. You can't give half a dose. Once you depress it, it's going to give the entire dose, which is 4 milligrams typically. And that's it. You've done it. You've given it. Problem solved for the situation and your involvement in it. We'll talk about this here in just a moment, but it's anyone who's ever been in a medical emergency that doesn't have exposure to that, typically, the 2 minutes that we see referenced here for waiting between doses can seem like 20 minutes, can seem like 2 hours. And that's perfectly natural. But we strongly encourage everyone to wait that full 2 minutes. It's gonna take at least 30 seconds before the naloxone even begins to take effect on someone. So it's really important to wait for that period. Worst case, if you give more, it's not the end of the world, but it could put someone who has opioid use disorder in a pretty bad spot if they suddenly are stripped of everything that they have on their baseline and they haven't been in a sober environment like that for quite some time. At the end of the day, though, again, it's not gonna hurt someone per se, so you could give more if you felt like you needed to. So in what I mentioned before about CPR, I ended up just creating this little algorithm to kind of navigate folks through what that process looks like. I think the first question, well, first and foremost, you need to call 911 if you recognize there's an emergency. Let's certainly not forget that part of the process. But it's important to, determine your safety, and as you approach someone, try to wake them up. It might be that they appear unresponsive, but they're actually sleeping. We've all been in that situation before. But if you are unable to rouse them and they are not breathing adequately, you're going to progress down the naloxone pathway. If they're not breathing at all, then it's CPR pathway. So that's really the only question you need to ask yourself at that point to try to simplify it. If they're breathing inadequately, then go ahead and give naloxone and wait that 2 minutes as 911 is doing its thing. And if they are not breathing at all, then it's not that you're going to hurt them with naloxone, it's that it's a waste of effort and a waste of time that could be spent doing chest compressions, which is actually the intervention that that person needs at that moment. Again, 2 minutes between doses after you've given naloxone. And then there's a lot of emphasis on putting someone in what's called the recovery position. You can look up tutorials on exactly how to do this. There's a number of great recommendations, like folding someone's hand under their head. At the end of the day, you're just trying to get someone on their side and in a position that they can maintain that position without intervention. And of course, the sole reason for this is if they were to vomit, we don't want them to aspirate and inhale that vomit and be in a more dire situation that can't really be managed. So that's my simplistic algorithm of how to go through this. And again, you're not going to see that in packaging. So I think it's just really important to emphasize that CPR might be the actual appropriate intervention for someone. So just to quickly recap on that, and then I'll share the resources with you all. Again, there's kind of 2 tiers here, so make sure you're knowing what tier that person is in. If they are still breathing, it's naloxone territory. If they progress to where they're not breathing, they are in CPR territory. For signs of an overdose, just keep it simple. If they're not responsive and they're not breathing adequately, we would call that the green light. We talked about how naloxone works on the receptor sites. It's completely legal. You are covered, and so are we. You can administer it in a pretty simple fashion. And then again, with the revised algorithm, if they're not breathing, please do CPR. But if you had 3 people there and someone gave it anyways, that's okay too, right? And then as far as accessing naloxone, as was mentioned earlier, luckily nowadays we've progressed a lot in the last 12 years and it's pretty common and easy to find. There is a vending machine at the detention center down the road that has access to naloxone. It's completely free. No one has to check your ID. You don't have to check in with anyone. Same thing is present at Southern Human Services. We carry it on every ambulance and we carry it in every EMS station for public distribution. And then with our post-overdose response team, apart from medication interventions that we partake in, our team is also mobile with naloxone and harm reduction resources and could bring them to anyone, anywhere in the county, any day of the week. So also, as I mentioned, at pharmacies, you can just go in and buy it. It's typically around $40 or so.
$65.
Well, we get a little discount, but you're right. Yes, thanks for pointing that out. Yeah, it has gotten a little bit more expensive lately.
So if you don't have insurance, you can do GoodRx. GoodRx, it will be a
Nice.
substantial discount to that. But if you have insurance there, but yeah, I checked on the
That's 65.
pricing actually I was getting Narcan for a neighbor out of state. But the checked here, $65.
That's 1 dose.
1 dose.
There's a website that actually Criminal Justice Research Department turned us on 2 years ago. It's called NarcanDirect.com. And it's still like $33 for the double dose packs on there. We actually just ordered some today. That's the only reason I know that off the top of my head. But it is very common now, and there are a number of grants out there. Pretty frequently, we get tapped from NCDHHS, and they're pushing out a huge pack that they have. So if someone has any problem affording it, it's certainly out there, and I would encourage them to reach out to the resources that we have.
What is SH? I should know this, but I don't.
Oh,
HAC, what?
gosh, I'm so bad with the acronym too. So it's the street outreach team.
Thank you.
Or no, I'm sorry. This is Student Health Action Coalition.
Okay, because I was
With
thinking, I know
UNC.
of SOAR, but not
Yeah.
street outreach. So
Yes,
that's-
yes. So yeah, UNC's Shack, so they have an SSP downtown that they operate as well.
Okay.
Linda, what's
Yeah.
the shelf life of naloxone? Can you leave it in your car or does it need to be temperature controlled?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's typically about 3 years. There is a range. I believe there's, they'll use verbiage like, oh, it can go out on excursion for up to X amount of time at certain temperatures. I can't tell you exactly what that temperature range is, but it's pretty reasonable. I would think in the summer around here, we were definitely exceeding, what it could handle inside a car though. Yeah, we could look it up real quick. I'll leave one for you.
Jason, our cars have, do we run into issues of heat and expiration?
Just sometimes we have had where they've expired because we haven't had, certain officers haven't had to use it, but we do get them replaced on a regular basis. from this
Okay.
time.
Does anybody else have questions? Matt?
Going back to the slide you had about the receptors and whatnot.
Yeah.
I know this is like a very basic question, but I know everyone, kind of understands that overdose is bad and whatnot, but what exactly is like the definition of an overdose?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, really, I think technically an overdose is just anything beyond the therapeutic intended level, right? But I think it's a great point, and that's what I'm trying to emphasize with this, is we think of an overdose as this binary, oh, they're in this territory of no coming back and need intervention. But really, if someone is altered, they've overdosed on that medication, right? Is that
Yeah.
helpful at all? Yeah.
And then like with the receptors, is it that the opioid molecule is taking the space of something else that would like be regulating someone's body to stay alive? Like, is that?
Yeah, no, it's also a good question. Yeah, so it just depends. So, I mean, there are receptor sites in a number of different places. There are, I believe, 3 different types of receptors that opioids interface with. But typically, you're talking about the brain stem. And at a therapeutic level, there's only a certain number of molecules that are interfacing with those receptor sites, right? But as you get to a higher dose or quantity in the system, then more and more of those sites are going to be occupied by them. And to an extent, you're going to have respiratory depression from a therapeutic level of opioids. It's just not usually identifiable, right? But as it progresses, you're moving more into that being more emphasized and more receptor sites having that effect. And that's my paramedic level.
No, that helps me, understand
Sure.
a little bit of the science of what an overdose is. So thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Questions? Thank you
All right,
very
yeah,
much.
thanks,
This is
y'all.
very informative. I know so much more.
Well, great. I appreciate it. And I really do appreciate y'all's time.
Get some thought.
I just want to say thank you to Landon again, but I'd also like to call Lieutenant Hooks up here for a second. He's gonna read something new, so. Absolutely.
So good evening, everyone. I'm Lieutenant Hooks with the Hillsborough Police Department of the Patrol Division, and it is my honor to introduce the Spirit of Hillsborough Award, which he has in his hands now. This award is the first of a kind from the Hillsborough Police Department. It was created to acknowledge exceptional actions from both residents and public servants alike, people whose compassion, dedication, and service embody the very essence of our community. As we observe Opioid Awareness Month, we are reminded of the challenges that many families face. Today's recipient turned from passion into action, helping save the life of someone experiencing an overdose. Their courage reflects not only personal heroism, but the unity, resilience, and civic pride that define Hillsborough. On July 9th, around 1:30 p.m., Mayor Bell was traveling down Orange Street and noticed someone on the ground next to a house. Fearing this individual may have fallen from the roof or were suffering from some sort of heat-related illness, he pulls over to render aid and calls 911. First responders arrive on scene, recognize the signs and symptoms of an opioid overdose, and immediately administer Narcan or naloxone. I think it was 2 doses. They're able to revive this person to the where he's able to walk away from the scene, no harm, no foul. But if it weren't for Mayor Bell being in the right place at the right time, being observant and compassionate, we fear that the outcome may have been completely different. So with that, it is with great pride that we present the very first Spirit of Hillsborough Award to Mayor Mark Bell, whose actions remind us of the power and service and the true spirit of our town.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for all that great information. Next, number 5 on the agenda, appointments, appointment of Sankalp Rangi to the 3-year term expiring October 31st, 2028 to the Board of Adjustment.
So moved.
Second, Kathleen, thank you, Matt. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, next, number 6 is the consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Kathleen. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that takes us on to number 7, items for the regular agenda. The first application, the first item, excuse me, is a rezoning and development agreement request from WP East Acquisitions LLC for 1001 Corporate Drive. Molly here is going to present information, and I see the developer here in the audience as well. Molly, we'll start with you when you're ready.
Yes.
Good evening, Commissioners, Mayor Bell, thank you. I'd like to point out that on the agenda, items 7A and 7B are both from the same applicant and related to the same project. So my plan was just to present them both to you. The applicant doesn't have a presentation, but they'd like to address the board. And then we talk about them together as a collective. And then at the end, I'll walk you through the motions of the separate items, if that works for everybody. Okay, and we'll start first with the rezoning and development agreement request. This is for 1001 Corporate Drive. You see that on your vicinity map up here on the screen. The red pin indicates the property. It's just south of Corporate Drive and just west of Meadowlands. This is the old Duke Hospice site. The property is about 11.1 acres in area, and right now it's zoned office institutional, and the applicant is requesting to rezone it to multifamily. The intent is to build a multifamily development with a maximum of 333 units, 10% of which would be affordable, and I'll get into more detail on that in just a second. The applicant's also proposing to enter into a development agreement with the town, and a development agreement is just a contract between the developer and a local government for a multi-year project. The development agreement does a few things. It sets the development standards in place for the entire development period. It's also going to memorialize any commitments from the developer. So any, contributions to the utilities, affordable housing percentages, et cetera. And finally, both parties have to agree to the terms. So one party couldn't force a term or a condition upon the other. They have to be mutually agreeable. This proposed development agreement, the term is 7 years. The development would be subject to the current town development regulations for those 7 years. And the developer has made a number of commitments in the proposed development agreement. Probably most notably that 10% of the units would be affordable for 30 years. And of those units, half would be at 80% of the area median income and half at 60% of the area median income. And I remember before that 30 years, we weren't sure. The developer is open to having some negotiation about that. So that might be a good topic of conversation this evening. They're also proposing to contribute $1,828,497.50 specifically for the design and construction costs for the Cates Creek outfall improvements to that. That number is very specific. It's a cost estimate done by a third party. It's been reviewed by engineering services manager and I believe a consultant that we have.
Yes, that family Martin, secondary review of the estimate, their self-prepared.
Thank you, Brian. Some staff comments, planning, multifamily would be consistent, the zoning would be consistent with the Unified Development Ordinance in this location. It would be inconsistent with the current future land use map. Right now, on the future land use map, that property is shown as suburban office. However, you can still approve the rezoning if you wish. We did something similar with Waterstone South last year. Basically under state law, you can approve the rezoning and that has the effect of essentially automatically updating the future land use map at the same time. From engineering and utilities, staff finds the town can serve the project under the terms in the development agreement. And as I mentioned, 7B is also from this applicant. They're also proposing a text amendment. And specifically that's to table 6.3.1 dimensional requirements. And they're proposing to change the maximum building height and the maximum density in the multifamily zoning districts. The planning board recommended approval of the applicant's revised version of the text amendment. You may remember at the joint public hearing, there were two versions. There was the staff version, which was less restrictive, and then the applicant's version, which was more restrictive. And the planning board was in support of the applicant's more restrictive version, which I'll show here on the screen. I know that's a bit small. We'll zoom in on it in a minute. But it does two things. Footnote 5 at the bottom, that just handles the building height. It essentially says that you can go up to 65 feet in building height if you increase your setbacks each by 5 feet. And then footnote 3, that deals with the maximum density. So we'll zoom in on that a little bit there. And the change to that essentially says in the multifamily districts, you can go up to 30 units per acre if 4 conditions are met. One, that 10% of the units are affordable at 80% area median income, that the development is within 500 feet of a major arterial road, that the development doesn't abut an existing single family dwelling use, and then 4, a development agreement would be required, like the one that you're reviewing this evening. So a development agreement would have to come before all of you for review and approval in order to receive that density bonus. And this map here shows you the 4 properties in town that would be eligible for that bonus based on those 4 conditions. And so all 4 of those properties are obviously already developed as multifamily developments. If the 1001 Corporate Drive property is rezoned, it would meet the conditions. It would also be eligible for that density bonus. And finally, staff recommends approval of the applicant's version of the text amendment for a variety of reasons. One, the current density bonus in the Unified Development Ordinance isn't used. So higher density is allowed, but only if all the units are affordable. And that sounds good, but it's a bit more complicated than that because completely affordable housing projects are generally funded through subsidies, like you've heard of LIHTC, like low income housing tax credit. The competition for those is high. There's only a limited number of projects that receive that in the county each year. And we generally end up losing out to Chapel Hill. They just have obviously a very robust affordable housing program. The proposed change is also consistent with neighboring municipalities. So on page 99 in your packets, I put together a matrix for you that discussed in 3 neighboring jurisdictions, some regulations and incentives regarding affordable housing. And 3, the development agreement is required. Staff felt pretty strongly about that. That gives you guys some ability to negotiate with the applicant. And it also gives you the flexibility to consider any other factors. So for instance, say somebody, maybe they can't build the affordable housing, but they want to dedicate land or they want to submit a payment in lieu or something like that. It would give you the ability to weigh these other factors when considering whether or not you wanted to approve the project. And with that, that's all I have. The applicant just wanted to quickly address the board and then we'll go ahead and discuss, take any questions you have.
Great, thank you. Molly, before you leave,
Yes.
does the board have any questions for Molly before?
Just
Molly
one,
turns her
I
in?
have just one
Yes, Kathleen.
clarification. So when you're saying the higher density allowed only if all dwelling units are affordable, you're talking about all dwelling units of the development, not
Yes.
all 10.
Yeah, so yes.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Just wanted to very briefly address you all and just really express that we are very excited about this project and we remain super excited. And we've been working with you all for a little over a year, believe it or not, and really just are appreciative of the partner-like and collaborative approach that we've felt during this time. And we're very proud of where we've landed on this to date. And I just wanted to mention that before we got into discussion. Quickly introducing my team. So I'm Emmett Visconti. I'm with Wood Partners, the applicant. I'm joined by Caitlin Shelby on my team here. We have Dan Jewell, our civil engineer with Thomas and Hutton. We have Earl Llewellyn, our traffic engineer with Kimley Horn. And we also have Ashley Terrazas, our legal counsel with Parker Poe. So we are here and available if you all have questions. But thank you so much for your consideration tonight.
Great, thank you very much. So this is a very detailed presentation, and I'm just thinking out loud for just a minute about how the board would like to ask questions. Do you want to go around the table like we usually do and ask all your questions, or do you want to walk through the development agreement and ask questions about that, or just go in order that's in the packet, or any strong feelings one way or the other? Okay,
I
yes.
think it would be good to go through the development agreement because I'm thinking this is for the community at large who are watching this. This is a pretty major proposal. I think it would be helpful.
Okay, right. So why don't we start with some general questions?
Well, why don't we walk through?
Yes, let's do that. So Evelyn,
Yes,
are you
before we
ready?
get, too many questions and it gets confusing.
Yes, it's a lot, yes. Evelyn, do you have any questions right now you'd
I
like
would
to?
like to walk through.
Okay. All right. Scrolling through. So we're starting on page 62 of the packet. And yeah, are there any general questions about the site and the rezoning request?
I have one that's just a clarification question. I think I know this answer, but I want to be clear. So what we have talked about or what we've heard is that this was supposed to be for naturally occurring. Is that still accurate where this is supposedly supposed to be naturally occurring? Of which 2 units were to be permanently either subsidized or rent modified to ensure that 80% or 60% AMI. My question is, if this is, this is naturally occurring, which the property I toured, as my understanding, or if my recollection is what I was told was that naturally that the rents and the incomes were all below 80% and just above 60%. Is my recollection accurate?
Yes, that's accurate.
Okay, secondly, if it's naturally occurring, to be clear, and you're not planning on selling this property? Because I know that's been a concern with properties like this, that they come up, they're sold, they go on open market, and we would be creating a displacement of 333 people.
Yes, we don't have
Can you
any,
just come to the microphone? We won't be able to hear. Thank you.
yeah, we don't have any immediate plans to sell. I mean, of course, like, long term, that's always a possibility, but like we spoke about, the project was and is designed as naturally occurring affordable, 100% of the project. 10% of the units, which are totally indistinguishable from the rest, are AMI restricted, period. And that's how the project was designed, and it's our strong belief that, for a lot of reasons that we can get into if you'd like, you can't just turn around and suddenly start marketing that as a Class A, high-end, super luxury apartment. Like, that's not what we're building, and so that wouldn't happen. So that's kind of the whole business model and the whole plan, is that it's naturally occurring. So regardless of who owns it in the future, the intent is for that to remain the same. I hope that helps.
May I ask a follow-up question on that particular topic? And that is, I think it'll come up in the development agreement where, how is that defined? Is there any technical definition in the development agreement or anywhere else that what that means? For future generations, 10 years from now, when the next board is, considering doing something like this, how will they know
Yeah,
how we define it?
yeah, it's a great question. I don't know that it's spelled out in the development agreement, but it's gonna be in our plans for the project. Like, you'll be able to see it in literally the project, excuse me, that we're designing. So, does that kind of answer your question?
Kind of.
I have a thought I can add too. I'm Caitlin Shelby with Wood Partners, working with Emmett. You may recall in our initial presentation, we talked a lot about Wood Partners Altera project specifically, and plans that we as a company had worked on, across the country to come up with a building type and building structures that are extremely efficient, that we could essentially take some cost out. We kind of call it behind the walls, so to speak, so that, the finishes are still very nice, new, etc. But we've essentially been able to build it for less. And that's what, when Emmett talks about, this being naturally occurring affordable housing, because we are able to build it for less, we are then able to rent it at lower price points, very similar to that project that you saw, Alta Town Center, that we looked at together. And so by its nature, those will be rented at rates similar to what you had mentioned, that, whether they're 80% or 60% area median income. And what we have found is, in time, as apartment communities age, they actually end up becoming typically more naturally occurring affordable versus less, just as the natural kind of life cycle of apartment communities. And so, we intend to have 100% of it naturally occurring affordable. In addition, we'll have those units, 10%, that are restricted. The development agreement calls it for 30 years. And I know that was something we talked a lot about, is 30 years right? Should that be longer? And we can certainly talk through that as well. Those will be restricted to 80% and 60% area median income. But the intent is that we build a community that is intended to be rented at a lower price point. The likelihood, even if Wood Partners were not to own it years from now, that changes, just from a market dynamic perspective, would be highly, highly unlikely.
I have a further question, because we have older apartment complexes in town that have not been, and those rents are sky high. They are priced just identical in the range of the newer buildings because demand's high, right? I know that the legislature ties our hands on what we as a municipality can do. Is there anything that we can do that, whether there's any, and this may be a Bob question, any kind of incentive, something, because as my fear is will end up like some of the older complexes we have town where they have not been as well maintained as one would hope. But those rents don't reflect that because of just sheer market demand.
Right.
And I get that the pure intent, the intent of the developers. I'm not as concerned about the current, it's the flipping that scares me.
Yeah, I'm not sure how we build that in.
I have two thoughts on that, and because it's a great point, and we talked, you may recall at our initial presentation, we talked a great deal about how we were financing this project and what was a reasonable amount to restrict from an income perspective. And again, the intent here is that these units are all going to look identical, whether they are the restricted or not. They're fully integrated into the balance of the units. And so for those reasons, it is very hard to increase the affordability restrictions and still build this with traditional financing. I would say, as a developer here in the Triangle area, the best way to avoid skyrocketing rents is to actually increase the supply of apartments that are on the ground. Because it's a little bit of that natural supply and demand. And I know that's not as specific as something to write into the development agreement, but I do truly think there is a real shortage in the town of Hillsborough today, and that's what's contributing to some of those older apartments being quite expensive. And so I think this naturally will help reduce some of that pricing pressure.
That's where mine was going as well. Like, imagine if those older communities that only have a few apartments available right now and thus are able to charge really high prices. Imagine if all of a sudden they had to compete against 300 new apartment homes that are available and charging reasonable prices. Like, you're gonna see those dynamics totally shift.
Thank you.
Great question, though.
May I ask a high level question? We know about the number of units, but how many bedrooms total is the project? You're able to tell?
I have that handy. It's in the 400s. So we have, give or take, 55% one bedrooms. I'll double check the exact numbers. Yeah, I think it's 55. Let me double check just so I don't speak out of turn. But yeah.
But generally, it'll be a combination of 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, and 3 bedroom. So we typically have at or less 10% 3 bedrooms, and then the balance are 1s and 2s.
It might be 60, 30, 10. 1s, 2s, 3s.
So it sounds like it'd be more than 400 bedrooms total.
Yes.
Perhaps, maybe that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other general questions?
I have a zoning question. So you had on the presentation, the map up of the 4 other properties. And, so that would be with the zoning change to increase the height and allow those 4 extra.
Yes, yeah.
Parameters.
Yes.
So those would be the only 4 that could possibly. That was a big question that I had.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can you bring that back? I know it's in our packet, but it's trying to scroll.
Calling on Sarah Delby again. I don't want to mess it up.
And to spend more time scrolling than it's probably good.
And this was the applicant's version.
Yes. You were wanting to see that.
78.
There's that map again, right there. I'm sorry, did you ask me another question? I was so focused on getting this back up, I was trying.
Oh, no, this is what I wanted to know is what other properties would
Gotcha.
possibly be
I had
affected
it
by
on my
this.
flip. For some reason, I was thinking Heritage Apartments were outside of town.
They are.
I know, I
Okay,
thought it was too.
so I'm not losing my mind there. Okay.
No, but they're in our.
I know they're in their ETJ, but. Okay.
Yeah, this represents town zoning, not necessarily town limits.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay, it's hard to know where to pick back up in the PDF in terms of kind of walking through the document. It's just not really user friendly and zoning we talked about.
I have one other question.
Okay.
This is just one of those. The estimate for the outfall. And I understand this is an estimate.
Yes.
Exactly how do you get down to 50 cents?
Just to see everybody's paying attention. But it was the engineers that prepared the initial estimate, prepared a specific.
50 cents.
I don't know, I'll go through it, they sent a big spreadsheet, and I felt like it was important to leave the estimate intact.
Like, I'd love to find land development for something for 50 cents, but.
It's a very nice bulb. I think we'll find something.
Yeah. Are there any questions about other questions about zoning? For the maps?
Motions?
Sorry.
We do two motions, or are we going to do it all as one?
We would do 3 separate ones. There'd be one for the zoning, one for the development agreement, and one for the text amendment.
I still question the 30 year. Our standard is 99. I know that Holiday Park in Boulder. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Holiday Park, but it is so inclusionary. Nobody could tell us what unit was what. Nobody. And we had the partners themselves. Of 10% were 0 to 30, and I forgot what the percentage were from 30 to 60, 60 to 80, and then the rest were market, plus there was the zoning was such that on first floor you could do small businesses. But those affordable, again, 99 year. That is something that I think does two things. It forces that permanent, naturally occurring beyond just that 30, and that's what the 30 years, one of the problems with the LIHTC. And I am strongly not wanting us to postpone or risk having to displace or lose especially essential workers, and we're just a lot of retirees and fixed income folks that once they establish home, this is home. So that 99 years, I think, is very important.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for bringing that back up. So this is an issue that I think got tangled in legal jargon. But what we did was Molly did some really great research on the neighboring jurisdictions, and we looked at the language in Chapel Hill. And we are prepared to match that language, which says 99 years.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
Ashley's here and she can read the exact language if you want to know what we're planning to insert.
I
but-
I would like to hear.
Okay, do you mind just, sure.
Thank you, Ashley Honeycutt Trusses, land use attorney Parker Pope. So we looked at the Chapel Hill ordinance, and their ordinance reads about the affordability period. For a period of at least 99 years or as long as permissible by law. I think we're comfortable with adding that in there as the affordability period, if that's what the board is coming.
Thank you.
Have the other board members feel?
I'm in agreement, but increase the number of years.
Okay. And along those lines, we're looking at 10% for 99 years now. And for the guaranteed affordable, the market rate is whatever the market rate is going to be in 20 years or 30 years. 40 years.
Does Chapel Hill still have their 15%?
It depends on which area of town it's in, so I think it's in the town center districts, it's 10, and then outside of that, it's 15, so.
Um. I have a question. On page 77. There's part of the development. Yes. And that is, I think we've seen language in certain areas where it says that the homes will be integrated. To Commissioner Ferguson's point, but on page 77, it says that, you would reserve the right to move them around at your discretion. So that, in my mind, that means, yeah, we could put them all in one building or the building closest to the interstate, or, that could be disadvantaged in that way. So can you help us reconcile how both those things can be true?
Yes, great question. And this has come up as we've managed some of these projects to date where we've had market rate and income restricted. So all of these units will have the same finishes. We're not distinguishing from, the finish levels whatsoever. Why it's important to make sure that we have some flexibility shifting them around is actually so we can make sure they're always rented. So for example, if we have somebody who comes in who may qualify, and for whatever reason, they may have a need to be in a unit that is facing a specific way. Or if we have a unit that is down for maintenance, and we may need to swap that person to another unit. So it's actually intended to give flexibility for those reasons and to make sure that we don't inadvertently sit with some of these 60% area median income units vacant for a period of time when we could actually be renting them.
Don't think that'll happen.
No, I know. Well, right, but it's,
Sort of scenario that.
it's, we had a maintenance issue pop up on a project just last week where we had a water intrusion issue that we had to move that person to another unit while we fixed that. So that stuff happens all the time. And more often that, it may be somebody who comes in and maybe they have a religious belief that wants them to be facing a certain way, or their unit to be facing a certain way, or something else, a ground floor unit versus, an upper level unit. These will all be elevator served, which is great. So that gives a lot more flexibility in terms of just the accessibility of the units. But that was the intent behind having the flexibility.
Can we write in those kinds of examples to frame it into the language? And again, I'm thinking something could happen, we're a town, we have to think of that 250
Sure.
year. So that it gives context, and I also want to give residents, some clarity and of expectations, as much as I hope it's not sold, but if it were to be sold, I want it to be very clear for that buyer. There's no ambiguity.
Sure.
It's in there of the intent, and it's clearly defined, and in a way that, you're not gonna pick every conceivable reason, but
Right.
you can describe the intent in a way where.
And is the main concern that you want to solve for making sure that they are dispersed throughout the property as
Correct.
opposed to, got it?
Well, I just jotted out some language,
Okay.
maybe it's a starting point
Yeah.
anyway. So in the sentence before, on page 77, in the sentence before we say the developer shall have sole discretion. Something like developer agrees and commits that the affordable units shall be interspersed with or interspersed among and indistinguishable from the market rate units, provided however, that the developer shall have the discretion to.
That's exactly along the lines of what I was thinking, and we would have no problem agreeing to that.
Right.
I mean, that's, I just throw that out there for consideration.
That makes sense to me.
I was
The
just gonna say
attorney-
coming in. hang
I
on.
think that language makes sense as well, Bob, and I did take that language from a covenant, an affordable housing covenant we just recorded in Raleigh, so that's where that comes from, and that's a pretty standard policy on the selection of the affordable units.
Thank you.
Okay, how about we just continue going down the, development agreement? At this point, are there any other questions, from the board? I'm on page, 76, and number 1 is recitals, and then number 2 is public hearing, and so we're down on, to number 6 about affordability. Are there any other questions on affordability, section number 6?
I'd be curious if they're interested in increasing the 10% at all. Is that an option?
This is something that we've talked about and thought about, and I think the challenge with this particular project is we are committing to a large amount of infrastructure upgrades as part of it, so we've got 1.8 million and 50 cents of upgrades for the sewer outfall. We've got a pedestrian connection to the Eno Haven apartments next door to connect them into the senior center, on top of the affordability commitment. So I understand not wanting to set that precedent, but I think when you look at this project and all the different cost burdens that are coming into play, that's the reason that we're holding on the commitment level that we've shared.
No.
Respectfully.
And I understand, we appreciate all the additions that, that you are bringing kind of this project to. So let's talk real quick about the shared path that you're talking about between, Haven and your property. And I think you have $300,000 out there. You realistically think you can build an ADA accessible trail for that distance for $300,000?
We do, yeah, and we have a drawing that we could share with you all if you were interested.
So that's my worry is as construction prices go up every day. And I know how much it costs to build a greenway, especially an accessible greenway. That you won't have enough money to do that. And so we'll end up having an easement with a $300,000, contribution, but it doesn't get us to getting more people, especially people that may have mobility issues. Out of their real property too.
Yeah, I understand that, and our concern was, we played with that language a little bit, and we were like, we'll build the path as long as it's feasible to do so. But as you guys can imagine, anything's feasible with enough retaining walls, and it could easily become a, $2 million project, so. Our intent there was to have some sort of cap that says, hey, as we dig into the grades and, whatnot, if this is just way, more than any of us would have anticipated, we're not on the hook for that, but we will commit the 300,000, we'll dedicate a public easement so that in the future that could happen. Now, just to be clear, that is absolutely not our intent. Our intent is to build a path, period. It's not quite as lengthy as you might think. It kind of goes from their parking area around. We picked like the most efficient path from point A to point B. So it's not quite as massive as you might expect, but it still accomplishes the goal of giving those folks a way to get to the senior center, which is a huge problem. I mean, as we dug in and started talking to you all, like, those folks are on an island right now and they have to get in their cars and get on 70 just to go to the senior center, which seems pretty ridiculous. So I hope that answers your question.
It does, and I think you answered this before too, but I'm gonna ask it again. The house that's currently there, is that staying there?
No.
Okay. And so my question before was, how many of these really old growth oaks and trees can you save? Because I was on that property I guess it was last week, when I was there too. And I forgot how beautiful
that property is and those trees. And I really wanted to find a way to save some of them, if not one of them.
Yeah.
So I hope you consider that in your development of, it's one of those things that you know, yes, we can plant more trees and 200 years later, we'll have what we see, now.
Yeah.
But just having a space that has that, full natural beauty for people to enjoy is priceless in my mind. So please see if you can save the trees.
Understood.
I have one question, which is, I know that on the payment in lieu fees, it is 100% of what was there, but we have a precedent that we've done where that if, instead of construction, it's a payment in lieu, that it's 125%. So I haven't done the math, but I want that to be honored.
Oh, for the pedestrian path?
Yes,
Okay. So you're saying.
if you don't
we,
do
for
it,
some reason, can't build
you
it,
can't do it
We
for that
dedicate.
300, that payment in lieu will be 100, or 300 times
okay,
1.25.
so we go to like 400.
Wait, whatever,
Yeah, okay.
like I said, I dumped in the math.
Yeah.
I wanted to acknowledge that that has been a precedent that we have it.
Oh, We're,
Did not want to surprise you.
we're agreeable to that. It's fair.
Any questions about the traffic impact analysis? I think in the past, we're accustomed to seeing data on, from traffic engineers, and we're disappointed that we didn't get to plow through the traffic data. So staff is comfortable knowing, with
Yes.
being able to work with whatever vendor they choose to get good information. Because I think you'll have some challenges for, especially on Meadowlands Drive and, where corporate meets Meadowlands, it's a very tight situation. And I saw your commitments to, traffic levels.
Yep.
There.
And we do have our traffic engineer here if you all have specific questions, or the early Llewellyn with Kimley Horn has been in the business for a very, very long time.
We've talked about pedestrian connectivity. Next on the list is the developer contribution to sewer extension. We've talked about that and the math that came up. Are there any other questions about that?
Any, just to clarify, any thoughts, concerns from your perspective?
No, we're comfortable with the cost estimate that was provided, and we feel like it adequately covers the anticipated cost of the project. That paired with previous proffers to upgrade the actual Elizabeth Rate Pump Station itself, I think we've got a good path to enabling development in a part of town where the town's wanted to see additional development, which is in the space, so.
Okay.
Moving down the list, 13 local development permits. Don't anticipate any questions about that. Good standing, 14.
Oh, I do have one question. I forgot.
Yes. On which one?
Going back to the very beginning, when it was introduced, the 7-year, I wasn't sure what.
Term of the development.
Term of development. I really wasn't sure what that does that mean it's 7 years before that it has to be built within 7 years?
That's how long that the development standards are locked in place. It's the term of the development period.
Okay.
So the project would be subject to the current development standards for 7 years.
Thank you. I thought that was, but I really wasn't sure. So thank you.
Okay, 15 amendment modifications, termination. 16. 17, force majeure. 18. Where you consider kind of the more esoteric parts of it. Don't anticipate questions on some of these things. Notices, number 21, entire agreement. 22, assignment. We have seen developers, kind of do the first phase of the development, get the zoning approval, and then sell it to someone else, and that's not lost on us. 23, governing law. Number 24, counterparts. Number 26, termination. I have a question. Kind of in the middle of that paragraph, it says developer shall have the unilateral right to terminate this agreement upon any change in the developer's plan for development that renders this agreement inapplicable. In which case the town shall be relieved of all obligations hereunder. Can you give us an example? Inapplicable? How do you anticipate that you might just want to walk away from this halfway through the build and then we're at the mercy of the next developer that comes in?
That wouldn't be. No, this is just a thing. Basically, if we were to terminate this agreement, we also would have the opportunity, the zoning would not be, we wouldn't have the rights. Correct, right?
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry.
Excuse me. Yeah, sorry, this is kind of the standard language about the termination of the agreement, and it flows from the chapter 10 of the 160D of the North Carolina General Statutes. But yeah, so no, it's not, they don't get any of the benefits of the agreement if it's terminated, midway through construction, and that's not their intent.
Okay,
It means that both,
in English.
Yeah.
means their rights are terminated and our obligations are terminated. They don't have any more, and their successors have no more right to build what they want to build right now. If they terminate the agreement, that's done.
The next developer would have to start over with.
Store all over, under the rules that were in effect at that time.
Okay.
That's right.
So, but it says that it's unilateral, so they can terminate, we cannot terminate. Is that correct?
Right.
And is that something that's normal?
I would think so, because otherwise developers would never enter into stuff.
I mean, that makes,
That's what the development agreement is designed to protect against. Telling you the truth.
that makes sense to me, but
Okay.
anytime I see unilateral.
Yeah. It's a powerful term. Number 28, severability. 29, authority. 30, construction, we're almost done. 31, lender protections. Number 32, which I'm not sure about this, estoppel. It's gotta be a legal term.
Yeah.
33, non-discrimination. Okay, any other miscellaneous questions about the development agreement? The exhibits. Okay. Molly,
Yes.
any other questions about the development before we move on to, do we need to act on this first before discussing?
No, we can talk about them and then just do bang, bang, boom, do three motions in a row.
Okay, great, thank you. So next we'll talk about, the text amendment to the UDO 6.3.1.
Mhm.
Any questions from the board about the changes in, density and height, setbacks?
So I guess I have a question about the height. And
Yeah.
so what is that? Does that mean adding another floor? What does that mean?
Adding, so they can go up to a maximum height of 65 feet. So they are, essentially, they were looking at adding more floors than would have been permissible. I think it's 45, is the current max. So yeah, it equates to maybe about an additional 2 floors. It depends on exactly the height of the floors, which can vary. There's no standard height for floors, but yes, so they're looking to build a somewhat taller building. We encourage them to consider a step back at least, so that's where that additional setback comes in. It's pretty normal to increase the setback the higher up you're gonna go. So that's where that language comes from.
And do we have any buildings in town now that are that tall?
No.
So was that require another ladder truck? No, okay. That's what I'm just.
Yeah.
If it did, that'd be a deal breaker.
Yeah.
What other questions does the board have? About the text. Yeah, any of the attachments? And Paula, did you show us a different, on the table, 631, there were more footnotes, so is there, did you show us a different version on the screen than is?
No, so they're the same, it's just it was zoomed in closer so you could see it, so there's only one version of the amendment in front of you this evening.
Great. That's on page 97.
Yes.
Okay. Appreciate the analysis of Carver and Chapel Hill.
Oh, I forgot one other question. Are there any other parcels that would be eligible for this?
For the density bonus?
For the proposed to text amendment?
That would be, so those four that we looked at.
Right, we
those-
looked at that, but any vacant parcels,
No, so those are just the
Just the four.
yes.
including Highway 70 proper. Okay,
That's on page 98 of the packet.
right, no, I saw the four, but it occurred to me, these were all existing. And then, and I
Right.
mentioned 70 and I'm starting to think 70 and anyway, my
Yeah.
mind was trying to think of some of the vacant property, ETJ and that sort of thing, so.
I think that's the point, is that it's so narrowly written
Yeah.
that the only other properties that would qualify are not vacant.
That's what I had understood, but it was just one more. Asking it a different way to verify.
Very creative.
Yeah.
Well done. Okay, any other questions about the text amendment? Okay, and Molly, you mentioned three
Yes.
motions.
So I would recommend first, handling the rezoning, then the development agreement, and then the text amendment. So first, you would be looking for a motion to approve the rezoning of the property to multifamily.
Adopting the consistency statement.
Yes.
And
I mean, I'm glad to I don't know if I'm gonna get all of these pieces, but I'm glad to motion the text amendment.
Separate.
we gotta go in order.
Oh, I'm sorry, forgot. I knew I was gonna screw this up.
So first it's the rezoning,
The rezoning.
then it's the.
Hold on.
Then it's the text system.
Hold on, rezone.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm glad to move to approve the rezoning,
Adopt.
adopt the consistency statement.
You adopt the consistency statement first,
Oh,
then you approve the rezoning. You can do it all in one motion, but
I,
let the record show it's in that order.
all right, let me try again. I told you I was gonna get this. That I moved to approve the consistency statement. Yes, the rezoning as approved, or as proposed. The development agreement with the changes that.
Let's have a separate vote on.
Okay, cool beans.
Kathleen's made a motion, so second.
I said,
Yeah, thank you.
So just to clarify, this is for the consistency statement and the rezoning.
Yes. Okay, any other discussion on that?
I just wanna.
Yes, right.
I just wanna say, I really appreciate how, I'm really looking forward to this project. And I think it's gonna be a success here in Hillsborough, and so excited about that, but I appreciate your guide, how closely it aligns with our wants and needs and the comprehensive sustainability plan and I wish you good luck.
Thank you. So Kathleen's made a motion and Matt, you second? Rob second, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, carries. Okay, and next, redevelopment.
Okay, I moved to approve an amended development, or the development with the amendments that we have discussed. Does that,
I have three.
Yeah.
One having to do with the 99 years. That's very single by law. Second one is that you agree to that the portable units shall be dispersed with and indistinguishable from market rate units. And the third was the 125% payment in lieu.
I second.
Okay, Kathleen, did you make the motion?
yes,
Okay, thank you, Kathleen. Seconded, so any more discussion? On the redevelopment amendment plus the three conditions. Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? Okay, Kathleen, you're on roll.
Yes,
Text amendment.
I approve that silly.
First,
What, wait?
first the consistency statement.
Okay, dang it, I missed it again. I move to approve the consistency statement and the proposed text amendment.
Second. Okay, thank you, Kathleen. Thank you, Matt. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good
Thank you
luck,
very much.
Mr. Park.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.
How's the board doing? It's been an hour and a half. We've been sitting down, you can stand up and around for a little bit before we go on to the downtown park.
Yes, can we do it? Yeah, bio break.
Okay, let's take 5 minutes. Shannon.
Yes, I know.
Hello, good evening. So I am very excited to share with you all the results of our parking study, which covered both downtown and West Hillsborough parking assets. We had some really good interaction with our consultant, which was Nelson Nygaard, in partnership with our friends at Triangle West. Yeah. Gonna try and not butcher that. And so we're excited to share these results with you. We've got Ian Banks from Nelson Nygaard here to talk us through the study, kind of what we found, what the recommendations were, what we heard during public outreach, and then we'll have an opportunity to kind of ask questions and provide any feedback. This is a draft study, so if you have feedback you all would like to see incorporated in, we can do that, or if you all are comfortable adopting this tonight, we can do that as well. We're pretty flexible on that. So I'm gonna have Ian come up and introduce himself.
Thank you, Shannon. Yeah, welcome back.
I'm Ian Banks with Nelson Nygaard, as Shannon mentioned. I'm based in our Washington DC office. But we work with our partners here at RK&K. You can see their logo on the front sheet there, who are locally based in Raleigh. I was expecting a bigger crowd when we showed up. Parking's here, so obviously that is not the case. I think we have about 15 minutes or so. Feel free to ask questions as we go through. I know that you've had the draft report within your packet as well as the presentation. So you may well have some formulated questions for us to go through. Right, button. How's it going to work on the PDF there? Yeah. So we have sort of a relatively brief agenda. We'll go through initial conditions. We'll go through the public engagement process that we went through, and then get into some recommendations that we have within the draft report. So they go through the management policies, operational procedures, and then we did put the action plan in here as part of the agenda. If we want to go through that, we can. I know that's in the packet, so you may all just have questions about that as we go through that. And then obviously any questions that are outstanding if we don't get to them as we go through. So our initial conditions was really spent time out in the field. This is the study area that we are taking a look at, obviously the sort of historic core district of downtown as you all know it. And then obviously to the west of the West Hillsborough area, including the South Nash Street area, as well as the 2 mills of Eno, as well as the Bellevue mills as well. I always ask this question when I'm presenting to commissions or boards, and it's like, how many parking spaces do you think you have? But you've probably read the report, so it's probably I'm hoping you've done your homework and you know the answer. So just hold on that for a minute before we get to that actual slide. But really, our project goals for this in collaboration with town staff was obviously to look at the supply and demand, begin to know what supply of parking you have, what the demand for that is, and sort of begin to determine whether or not you've got a deficit or a surplus of parking. Begin to know what the ownership and the public access of that parking is as well, and they are two different things. public availability of parking is different to whether or not it's publicly owned and or privately owned. Information signage and wayfinding, that's obviously critical for either people that live in town, work in town, coming to visit, customers of businesses, being able to know what parking is available, how to find that, whether or not they're gonna have to pay or not, whether or not there's regulations through different times of day. So we did all that through the inventory as well. User satisfaction, so that comes out in our public engagement process. Surveying, interviewing downtown businesses, employees, stakeholders, the community at large, to begin to understand what their concerns as it relates to parking is. And then getting into operations as well. So like, how is it currently managed? Staffing, operational strategies that are currently in place within the town, as well as the management of that parking, to make sure that that supply and demand is adequately being managed as necessary. So going on to the next slide, into initial conditions. I'm hopeful you all thought that there was 1,800 parking spaces in both downtown and West Hillsborough. And you can begin to see here on this map sort of how they are sort of differentiated, A, by their use and their availability, but also through West Hillsborough as well as downtown as well. And you can see there the dark colour is the private parking, and obviously that lighter colour is the public parking there. Within downtown, there's about 400 private spaces, about 538 public off-street spaces, with about 151 of those being on-street, for a total of just over 1,000 spaces within downtown. And then corresponding in West Hillsborough is really sort of about that 750 number, with much less off-street public parking, a lot more private parking, as you can see there, differentiated by the colours.
There's something real quick.
Yeah.
So that 154 you have in West Hillsborough Off-Street Public, is that big lot across from?
Yeah, it's exactly.
Or is it
Yeah, I mean, so
other
that,
places?
yeah, that's the gravel lot that you can see, as well as Gold Park as well.
Okay, so that counts.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
The colored spots, all that, excuse me, I just had a bite of this. I'm just noticing a couple of parking lots, Matt pointed out another one that are not highlighted, but are parking lots. Are they counted, or this is just a pretty picture, or?
Depending upon, so it depends is the answer. Essentially, this was our study area. There may be some smaller lots, which may be like sort of like 5 spaces, which.
I was thinking like the Whitted building has more than 5.
Yeah, the intersection of Triumph and Castle Street, and then also there's the public on Cameron, where it kind of isn't there between King and Margaret, and those are public spaces as well.
So we didn't go as far as Whitted. Because Whitted, it was not just, when I think of, and I think when others think of places to park in downtown and or West Hillsborough, I don't think Whitted necessarily comes to mind. That's more of a destination parking lot. And it would be challenging for ADA accessibility to park there and get to downtown. And then what was the other line you mentioned, Matt, on Cameron?
The segment of Cameron that goes from King to Margaret.
Blind spots there.
Oh, the on-street, next to the visitor center. There's
Probably like 5 spots.
5 or 6
the-
spaces there.
Well, that's one I was seeing was the.
Well, yeah, visitor center. Yeah, we can,
We'll make a
can add
note of that
yeah.
because we probably did count it,
Yeah, I mean,
it just
yeah.
didn't show up in the layer.
Exactly.
Thank you for pointing that.
Yeah. So what we did do is, I mean, obviously, back in both December, so we actually came in under contract for this project late last fall. But we decided that obviously we wanted to try and get utilisation of parking when the town was relatively abundant. And so we did 2 different counts. We did a count during the Christmas holiday parade. I think that was December 8th last year. So we got that data. But then we waited until the spring of this year. So both in late April, the 23rd, which is a Wednesday, and the 26th, which was the Saturday, we did parking utilisation counts within obviously the areas that you begin to see here. And we did that for both the weekday, which is sort of a typical weekday. Typical weekdays tend to be Tuesday through Thursday. most people are out and about in town, employees are in town, sort of regular port days, etc. for the port system. And then obviously a typical Saturday. Fortunately, weather was good. And so that is impacted within the counts that you see. And so this is we did counts essentially we did 3 counts throughout the day. So sort of a morning one, afternoon, or a sort of lunchtime period, and then a late afternoon session as well. And what you can begin to see here is sort of an average weekday of that. And in terms of the numbers that you can see within the report as well, the overall average peak was about 60%, 65%, within the downtown area, a little less so in West Hillsborough. And then overall, it was about, taking a look at the numbers now, sort of it began to peak about 62% during that sort of lunchtime period, around noon to 2, which is probably what you experience on most of your days that you're in town.
Did any of the days where you're doing the counts include traffic court days?
So it was a Wednesday, which I believe is traffic court day. And I'm trying to think if the 23rd itself was a court day. I believe I have to go back and check. I want to say it was, but we can double check on that.
It's every Wednesday.
Yeah, I mean that's what we thought. So which is one of the reasons we chose a Wednesday as opposed to a Thursday or Tuesday as well, because we'd certainly heard a lot about that in our engagement.
When you said afternoon for the weekday parking, is that possibly before folks have come back to Hillsborough if they've worked their way up? Thinking of like the apartments over in the west side. How they
Yeah,
fill up after 6 p.m. Or all those 3-time counts prior to probably people coming back.
They are, yeah,
for dinner.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, the way that we sort of discussed it with staff was really that sort of those peaks are going to be between that sort of 9 to 5 period. And so there, like I said, there was that sort of that morning sort of 8 to 10 count, and then that 12 to 2 count to get that lunch rush, and then sort of a later afternoon, which was anywhere from sort of 4 to 6.
Is there any assumption that perhaps like a late evening weekday count would be similar to like maybe a weekend count?
Yeah, I mean, so the next one that we did do is obviously that average weekend count as well, and you can begin to see a little bit of differentiation here in terms of the weekend to the weekday. There's certainly a little bit more high usage of those on-street spaces that you see there in those darker colours. Certainly along West King, obviously the West King parking lot, which is behind Cover Joe there. And as you begin to come down Churchton as well in terms of those lots and obviously use of the Eno River parking deck as well. So we certainly saw more usage of those. And again, but interestingly, as we got into the peak times, the weekday peak as well as the weekend peak were essentially the same in that sort of that 12 to 2 period. And so it's still very much around sort of those destinations for lunch and sort of people being out and about during that lunch hour doing activities. And you can begin to see here on the weekday, there's that peak again is in those areas that you would expect to see. So it's around the courthouse, obviously to the east of Churton there. You then got the Weaver Street Market lot, the garage as well, and then obviously the West King and the West King lot as well, which are obviously always popular throughout the day.
What was the methodology to gather the data?
So this was all done on foot, and so it was staff driving around counting those spaces, and so it is. I mean that is the sort of the caveat to all of this data. It is a snapshot in time, but I mean obviously it begins to give us trends as well as obviously when we came here to town for public engagement, we got to see sort of throughout the day how those trends begun to mimic what we saw from the data as well. It certainly did mimic here. I mean, obviously what you see for the weekend peak here. Again, I'm sure that most of you will probably agree with the trend that we saw here, that heavy usage along West King, heavy usage in the West King parking lot. And then certainly to sort of the eastern side of Churton around some of those sort of more distant lots off of Cameron and things, they are very lightly utilised, particularly on weekends when the court system and the court uses and the county uses are not in effect. We can't forget obviously about West Hillsborough. Obviously those uses are relatively lightly used on a weekend, a little bit more so obviously with the uses on the weekday with the uses of the mill and obviously the residences that are in Bellevue Mill as well. I think we saw quite a few of you through our public engagement process, and we've had three main forms of our process. One was obviously our online survey. That was open late April through early portion of June. Hopefully you all filled it out. I won't go back and look through results to make sure that you did. But we got 518 responses, predominantly as you can see from that graphic in my top right-hand corner. Most of those are from within the county and or within the town themselves. Most people are connected to that responded were connected to the town through coming here to shop, coming here to go eat and drink, as well as obviously for portions of work as well. Most people park here for sort of 2 hours or less, or it's really probably 3 hours or less. You can see there from that chart on the bottom right that most are 3 hours or less, and so that begins to sort of jive with coming here for groceries or to shop or to go out and eat and drink as well. Obviously, those that are here for work are those in the bottom of that chart, which are here for much longer periods of time, 4 hours and beyond. The word cloud there begins to highlight what you probably most agree with. Like most here are here for their office, library, coming from the post office. They live here, study here, want to come down to downtown, and things like that.
Well, there's two instances in the same weight.
Yeah.
Of Hillsborough, like Hillsborough General, is that from respondents saying, hey, I just came to town, it was generic, I just came to town?
Yeah.
Is that what that means?
Yeah, I mean, essentially, yes. I mean,
And why is it duplicated?
I mean, this is generally it could be it was an open-ended response of why, like, what's their typical destination.
Right,
And
in terms of the word cloud, because you've got the same, it differs in color.
Yeah.
But it's two, so, I mean,
One's
I'm
got a
not,
period.
I'm like going, sorry?
One's got a period.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean,
you're right.
yeah, I mean,
There's the deal.
it's essentially how people fill that out. I mean, there's actually a smaller Hillsborough in there as well. So if you look hard, you'll probably find 3 or 4.
Yeah, but it's connected with HES. No, it's not.
Yeah, there's another one with the present.
Yeah,
Parentheses.
down there, yeah.
Oh, yeah, Hillsborough Presbyterian,
Yeah.
2 words separated, got it.
Just a sort of sample of other questions that we asked, and we go into a little bit more depth here of these responses within the report itself. Like, where do you typically park? Most people say they park on site of their destination or at least within the same block. A little more say, or a little less say that they park a block away, 2 blocks away. Very rarely are people saying that they are more than 3 blocks away. So typically that begins to say that generally people are finding parking relatively close to their destination and within a relatively walkable destination as well of where they want to go. What kind of parking do they typically use while they're here in Hillsborough? I mean, obviously the parking garage or parking lot where they can park for free is overwhelmingly the top one there at 70%. And then as they begin to go down that list, it begins to lessen in number. Either on-street spaces is 20%, and then others which are sort of private lots, which are perhaps related to their office or their place of destination as well, whether or not they're a customer of those locations.
I just have a question of
Yeah.
the two people allegedly paying for parking by the hour.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that may well happen.
That's a head scratcher.
Yeah, I mean,
It's like Hillsborough there.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, I mean that that either someone clicked the wrong button or something there, but either that or someone's got an illicit meter somewhere, which we did not find.
Or maybe I need to set up some of those spaces.
We did ask a quick question about how satisfied people were as it relates to bicycle parking as well. Generally, people are somewhat satisfied with the amount of bicycle parking in Hillsborough, and we asked a couple of follow-up questions to that as well, whether or not there's need for more parking, more amenities, and we've learned to highlight that in the report as well. We met with some new estate as stakeholders. So we did do one-on-ones and focus groups with businesses, employees, county agencies that obviously have a stake in parking in downtown, as well as town staff as well. And sort of the key themes here are highlighted in those 4 points that generally people think that there's enough parking in Hillsborough. Except for special event days, and that's probably what you would come to expect. So locals tend to know this. They tend to plan accordingly for that, either that or they've got their secret little parking space that they don't want to tell anyone about. And we had engagement, we had maps and things like that, and we tried to get people to put their stickers on their secret parking space, and we are sworn to secrecy about those. So, But it was also granted that employees and customers, they want to park in those same areas. Everyone wants to park relatively close to either where they work or what their destination is. And this sort of begins to be borne out, in the conversations that we had as part of these stakeholder meetings, but in our recommendations as well, is that unfortunately, like employees, they get there before the customers. And so they tend to occupy some of those spots closest to the buildings. And obviously, as a business owner, you want to appease your employees, but you also want to appease your customers too. So there's a little bit of give and take there, and we begin to get into that into the recommendations as well. But there was also that final point there. There's a little bit more of a desire for on-street loading zones. So like delivery trucks don't block travel lanes, and particularly in some of the sort of the more historic roads, which are relatively narrow 2-lane streets. Perhaps there's a little bit more regulation around some curbside spaces for pickup as well. And so perhaps they are more 15-minute spaces for those more transactional activities. If you are going to grab a coffee or pick up dry cleaning, etc., you don't necessarily want to have to park a long way away. And there's management processes that can be done to enable those spaces to be open as well. Our final one was the public pop-ups, which you may have seen us out there on the street. We're in town late May. We did 5 different locations. We were going to go to the last Friday event, but got rained out. So, but we met with over 100 people during these 5 sessions that we did have. We did in both downtown as well as out in West Hillsborough as well. Frozen custard is good, by the way. I mean, I'm sure you've all been there. But this was a good way to just like interact with people as they were going about their daily business, who may not have been aware of the survey or may have just been visiting as well, just to get those interactions and show them our existing conditions and get their viewpoints on things that were working well, perhaps things that were perhaps needing some improvement as well. So in terms of recommendations, we there's two main facets of our recommendations: management policies and then operational procedures. And the sort of the highlights of the management policies are sort of beginning to be here. So, town staff management, it sort of begin to designate an existing staff member who is sort of that go-to person for parking. Right now, it's sort of split amongst a number of different staff members. And so sometimes that things begin to get lost in translation, or perhaps conversations are going on in different facets of the town. And so beginning to have an understanding of sort of the overall parking program by a single person is often the better way to go, and so they can become essentially the parking czar for the town, and begin to have a lot more consistent discussions, a lot more consistent agreements and decisions being made by those folks as well. Facilitating shared parking agreements is certainly a key one moving forward. There's a lot of private parking. There's some existing shared parking agreements that are already in place, and just beginning to have that liaison between the town and these private parking owners gets you sort of over some of these implementation barriers. Liability is always a key one. People are scared that if you open your parking lot to public parking, someone trips and falls, or they have a car, or their car gets dinged or broken into, that they are now on the hook for insurance and those kinds of things. But certainly those kinds of barriers can be overcome with the town being sort of part owners or part agreement decisions with those as well. And you can begin to incentivize shared parking by use of technology as well. So being able to understand how many people are using your lot, and being able to be put onto the town website and things like that to actually promote the use of that outside of perhaps private hours as well. I mean, the typical example is a bank parking lot. Typically, you'll see a bank 9 till 5. After that, there's a chain that goes across, and it's essentially not used until the following Monday morning. And so that's sort of an opportunity to be able to have shared parking and be able to identify some of these additional lots. Within the report, you'll see that we've sort of begun to identify the First Baptist Church lot as a potential for that. You know, a lot of our engagement with the public, particularly locals, they were like, we just park there on, like, we know it's not going to be used like outside of Sundays or outside of special events, so we park there and we just walk into town. And so being able to formalize some of those agreements enables you to have a lot more public available parking without the cost of having to build additional parking. And that's what leads us on to that coordination with Orange County as well. We certainly found from the Eno River parking deck and the utilization of that. I mean, you've all been there, you will know how that is utilized. The top deck is gated off with fleet vehicles and county employees. The bottom deck is partially coned off for and gated off for county employees. There's a lot of opportunity there, and we did discuss that with the county about the opportunity to open those spaces for special events, evenings, weekends, when county staff are not using those. And again, you can begin to use the technology that is available to sort of begin to manage that, and so people don't necessarily outstay their welcome. And so when county staff come back on a Monday morning or whenever that may be, that their space is being used by a member of the public. So being able to have that coordination with them is going to be key. But we also know that there's been lots of discussions about sort of potential new parking decks being built by the county as part of their facilities master plan here in the town. And so just coordination, again, it could be that parking manager, someone within the planning department that has that coordination with the county to ensure that if there is any additional parking going to be built for county use, that there's public access to that outside of the needs of the county. And so that process moving forward is just about expanding the potential supply that the town has moving forward.
Yeah, do you seem open to that shared parking agreement or?
Yeah, for sure. I think certainly from our discussions with them, they want to be good stewards of the facilities and amenities and the realization of the impact that they have on the town. And so from the utilization of the Eno parking deck, as well as any potential use, I mean, they realize that it's in their best interest to be able to enable public availability for that too.
Has this been shared with the county, this data?
When we spoke to them, they said we haven't shared this final report with them
Okay.
yet. I mean, I think that it's a public document, so it will certainly go to them. And I think in the discussions that we had with them, we were like, well, once we get to final recommendations, that will certainly pass it along to them. And then just that final one there, obviously employee and business parking. There's education portions of this and sort of incentive programs to try and have businesses encourage their employees to park further afield. I mean, as we saw that there's sort of underutilized lots and areas to the east of Churton Street. I mean, that's ideal to have them do that. Certainly there was a little bit of perceived security aspects of that if you're walking back late at night after say you working a nighttime shift or something like that.
I think you just answered my question, which is what kind of pushback did you get on that? Because that is like real interest kind of thing to do.
Yeah, I mean,
Get the park further away to make room for the customers.
yeah, I mean that's certainly from what we were told in our discussions, that's certainly a perception. I mean, we certainly haven't heard of any true safety issues as it relates to walking the parking lots and things like that in town. But it's, I mean, it's certainly understandable if you are, say you're bar staff and you're walking back to car with potentially tips at the end of the night. If people know that you're now working further afield, you could potentially become a target. But I think that's probably something that we discuss with the police department and begin to understand that and sort of put perhaps some measures in place that allay some of those fears as well. Let's try and get through some of these. Curbside management is obviously key. Providing adequate and accessible ADA parking as and when you begin to look at either parking lots and or new on-street parking facilities as well. Management and enforcement of the loading zones is certainly key. Signage goes a long way for that, obviously. But it's also about, you don't necessarily need a loading zone 24/7. I mean, I'm sure you've seen them in town, that loading zones are typically used during business hours and or early mornings for use. But after 5 PM, could that loading zone be used for something else? Sure, it could. It could be used for Uber Lyft. It could be used as a parking spot. It could be used as a valet zone, for example. There's lots of different uses, and obviously you have signage and permitting that to accommodate those uses. So as you sort of begun to see in some of those recommendations, we did sort of look at, there is the potential to have about either private and or public valet at peak times or for certain activities, and sort of begin to use those loading zones for those spaces could be a potential. Obviously enforcement of loading zones, you don't want to necessarily be heavy-handed. You want to try and encourage business and encourage loading to your businesses. But there also needs to be at least some level of enforcement for that. And that can be relatively short-lived targeting, just to make sure that, I'm sure most of the UPS and FedEx and regular delivery drivers are regulars to town. And so I'm sure the police department and or others can begin to have a conversation about that, as opposed to necessarily be punitive and providing lots of tickets, etc., which doesn't always go down necessarily well. And then long term is obviously autonomous vehicle use will come at some point in time. Just be as always have that in sort of the back of our minds as we begin to think about additional regulations in the future as well.
How do you prepare for autonomous vehicles?
Well, I mean, eventually you can begin to have, as you begin to put up signage, You can make sure that it is readable, electronically readable by vehicles. And so it knows what vehicles can park there at certain times of day, when it can't park there. I mean, those kinds of things are already out in the open. RFID chips and things like that, that cars can begin to read those things.
I mean, I know that, you know, some of the business to business suppliers are talking about going to zone tech, a drone technology and that sort of thing, and we haven't even talked about anything. Has staff considered about that? And I have no idea how that would impact any of this, and I don't know what, timescale, you know, that we can expect to be impacted by that.
Yeah, I mean,
Any thoughts?
I mean, it would certainly be good from a park perspective.
Well, yeah, but it also could be a problem being beamed on the street.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I think that is truly its sort of infancy right now. I can't imagine that you'll be getting a beer delivery with a keg from a drone.
That's what I was just gonna say, so
Anytime soon, so.
to be able to get like 3 pounds of onions and, you know, a couple pounds of slabs of, you know, pork ribs and all that stuff. So right now, the planning for that in the future is a good idea, and thinking about the loading zones. Right now, some of the problem we're having with parking and loading zones is just trying to keep a certain food vendor that shall not be named from just using the middle lane in Churton Street to unload all of their deliveries. So trying to get those folks where they're supposed to be. You know, Stephanie and the town did a lot of great work establishing and building loading zones that sometimes are not getting used. So trying to make sure we get those better used is one of the recommendations from the study.
And Shannon, in the interest of time, I think this meeting, we've got at least another hour to go after this, so if there's any way we could kind of.
Yep, so we're on to our final slides. So really, the next ones is really about operational procedures, and this is sort of like optimizing your existing inventory. We all know that parking costs a lot. Any way that you can begin to optimize what you currently have essentially saves you $50,000 a space, give or take. And so a parking garage is anywhere in the 20 million kind of range, 25 million kind of range. You can do a lot with 25 million rather than build places to park a car. And the data has shown that you've got enough parking. You just need to begin to disperse people to use that parking. And so how do you do that? Technology systems, real-time information, so you can go to an app or the town website, you can understand how many spaces are being used. This is an example of downtown Milwaukee here that sort of begins to have some of that technology in place that begins to understand how many spaces are available. I mean, hopefully none of you have ever got into the spiral of death in the parking deck where you go all the way to the top and realize there's not a space, and you have to come all the way back down again, and you pass 5 cars who are doing exactly the same thing. I mean, ideally you want a sign at the start that says like, we are full. So that gets through that process. Simplified parking and access map. Beginning to add on-street parking where applicable, short-term as well as drop-off parking. I spoke about valet parking options earlier, both public and private, and being able to have that availability. And so if you do have this sort of underutilized parking, again, like we've spoken about, perhaps on a weekend over on the eastern side of downtown, how can you use that without necessarily having to basically just push people over there? If someone can drop their car off on Churton and a valet goes and drives it 3 blocks away, that could be an attractive way to utilize those parking lots that you have. And then employee transportation support as well. Along with the MPO, there's a lot of options to try and encourage employees to either not necessarily drive every day. There's opportunities to use public transit, bike and ped, as well as have those. There are programs like Guaranteed Ride Home, for example. A lot of people say, I don't want to ride transit in case I get a call from the school that my child's sick or I need to go home early for an activity. There are these Guaranteed Ride Home programs that in those cases, you can get a Uber taxi that will be paid for by that program, as opposed to you having to wait for transit, etc. So there are these opportunities to begin to expand. transportation modes within the region as well. And this gets into this here, transportation demand management, coordination with Orange County, commuter options program. You can begin to formalize sort of a little bit down the road, a full town TDM program. And that's where you begin to sort of more formally encourage these alternative transportation modes as well, transit, walk environment.
Did Central
bicycle.
Pines talk about the regional TDM programs in place?
Yep. So, yeah, I mean, obviously having David and Central Pines as part of the group, that's one of the options available to us as well. We spoke about this a little bit, branding, marketing, signage on wayfinding, being able to make sure that people know where they're going before they make that trip. Before I was with Nelson Nygaard, I actually worked for the city of Annapolis, and if you've ever been to the city of Annapolis, where the Naval Academy is, everyone just drives down to the water and says, oh, now where am I going to park? And so part of our program there was to basically make sure that people know where they're going before they make that trip. And it's the same in any real true downtown, that ideally you want to make people that information available. And so people can say, right, I'm just going to go straight to the parking deck. That A, gives them comfort that they're going to go try and find a space, and B, it reduces congestion within your downtown as well, so you don't get people circulating. Just the final one, obviously in events management, there's lots of different options there, transit, remote lots and shuttles and event plans. And then just enforcement as well. We, right now, there's very little enforcement of the on-street regulations with the 3-hour parking limit and things like that. Just being able to have sort of a light touch on enforcement. Again, you don't want to be punitive. You want to try and encourage people to come to downtown Hillsborough. But just having a light touch of perhaps rather than a ticket or a citation, perhaps it's a note to say, by the way, you've been here longer than 3 hours. If you want to stay here longer than 3 hours, there are these areas available for you to park. And particularly for employees, that's going to be key as well. And certainly we heard lots of employees that literally just do park on the street, and perhaps if they're feeling good one day, perhaps they'll just move it 3 spots down the street and do that shuffle. But really it's an education portion of that enforcement program. And with that, I think open up to questions. We did have the action plan in there. That is a little bit more detailed about how the town can begin to prioritize short, medium and long term, some of these recommendations moving forward and strategies moving forward. There are sort of some relative estimate of costs associated with that as well, sort of like from sort of a single dollar up to $5 in terms of what the effort in terms of that funding might be. Other than that, I know you've got a busy agenda, so we'll open up to any questions that you may have that haven't been on.
I have a quick question about the action plan. I guess, Shannon, you've already put some thought to which of these gets the most bang for the least amount of buck in kind of prioritize.
What I do.
There are a lot of strategies in there, and unfortunately, some of them look really expensive, so.
Yeah, and that's probably something we're gonna have to sit down and look at the recommendations and the strategies and then the cost analysis. So there was, Nelson Nygaard did a good job of kind of guessing of what those costs were. But we'll have to get cost estimates and things like that. And what we'll probably do is prioritize kind of the lowest hanging fruit. That's just kind of the way that we do things, is if it's easy and it's relatively affordable and I can put in a small budget request to do it, or we can partner with the county. That we had a lot of conversations about future partnership with the county, because I think as the county grows and the town grows, we're going to have to continue to work really closely together. And we have a really good relationship with, Orange County's asset management department. So I think it may not be that we get the fancy sign, the little counters up immediately, but maybe we do get that deck is full, or this many spaces are open before you pull in there, so that you just know that may be kind of a multi-phased approach to some of these. May have to be kind of right sized for us based on our budgets.
Thank you. And before I ask to go around the table, so what you're asking us to do tonight is to kind of accept this draft report, and then staff, and you'll come back with later recommendations and budget requests and
Yeah,
things like
we'll get down kind of into more of a nitty gritty plan for how we're going to accomplish some of these things. It's been very kind of highly outlined.
Thank you. This is very detailed. I really appreciate the utilization maps. I think that will help, especially the downtown merchants, understand kind of where parking is occurring and where it's not occurring and times of day and things like that. I don't think we've had that view in a long time, if ever, so that, I think that's really insightful information that's easy to share. Questions? Evelyn, do you have any questions about the parking study?
I understand parking quite well. I have a pharmacy on West King Street. And Monday would been the day to park because most restaurants are closed.
Yeah, and you saw on the map that that parking lot behind you stays pretty full.
Well, I know that they do, but the way I'm concerned about is people coming into my pharmacy.
Mhm.
And everybody in Bureau Supply has the same problem. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for
Yeah.
bringing. I have been on the board so long that I'm pretty well.
He knows where to park.
I mean, need everyone's secret parking space.
No questions?
Megan?
And no questions, thanks for the information.
Thank you. I think I've asked all my questions. Rob?
I don't have any questions. I do appreciate again the thoroughness of it. It's a fairly complex, issue. I've always thought that we have enough kind of adequate parking here, but we have to walk a block or two. I'd like to increase our, ADA parking and have just more accessible parking, that's close to things. And I'd really like us to see what we can do with the county, because the county just has lots that can be used that aren't used at night generally. For like large events, I do like the recommendation that, if there is a large event, that we require them to have some sort of, parking. What do you call it?
Parking management.
Yeah, so, just someone kind of directing and telling people, yes, there's more parking down here, or, I think it just goes a long way, because we do have some large events and, people in Hillsborough, they know where to park, but, people that aren't from here, we want them to leave with a good experience too, and, find a parking place, but thank you.
Kathleen?
I'm impressed with this report. The last time I sat through a parking study, we talked about availability of parking, but to actually have it well documented in a form that can be communicated well with residents, with the merchants, with the county, with stakeholders across. And then come with clear recommendations. Pre-segmented, this was well done, I'm impressed, and I do second Bob's comments.
Thank you, Kathleen. Okay, so you'd like a motion from the board to accept the report?
Move to accept as presented.
Second, Kathleen, thank you. Evelyn, any more discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Done. All right, thank you. Jen. Code enforcement updates.
Yes. And I apologize, sometimes what happens with these things is they get shifted around a little bit, and so we end up with the rezoning on the same night as some large code enforcement updates. So I did, Sarah, am I sharing correctly? Is this still sharing? I don't want to continue sharing the presentation on YouTube. Oh, there it is. Okay. Anyway, minimize it. I don't need to share anything. All right. Yeah. So I don't want to be still sharing the parking study while we've moved on. So there are a handful of ordinance amendments to the town code. And so this is going to be stuff that applies within the city limits.
Maribel, we can kind of go through these as you want, but just to do a high level overview, I kind of discussed a little bit in our last code enforcement update when I did give the presentation that we did need some updates to the town code in order to be able to better transact abatements, particularly for abandoned and nuisance structures, which is what that chapter 4, the new chapter, basically covers. A lot of that language comes from state statutes, because there were a couple of things that I asked about tweaking, and I kind of heard back from our code enforcement contractor that was like, no, you can't tweak that because it's the state law. I think there was one where there had to be maybe 5 different complaints. Yeah. And I was like, why do 5 people need to complain? Like, I don't understand. Let's just strike it. And I was like, no, that's the law. But it can be 5 folks, or the code enforcement officer can witness that there is an abandoned or nuisance structure. The keeping of farm animals inside the city limits, that was very heavily updated, but it also was brought to my attention that while we haven't had any big problems with it, like somebody who just, on a 10,000 square foot lot decides that they're gonna go buy like 6 cows or anything, it could potentially be a problem. We have had some issues with sheep and goats. And I will say in that section, lumping small animals along with chickens and other type of fowl have been a little problematic. So we kind of tried to break out, okay, these are large farm animals, these are small farm animals, and these are your chickens and your quails and your small like peasants and the pheasants and things that people like to keep on hand for eggs. We have had some issues with people calling and saying, hey, I've got this animal, I'm gonna, slaughter it and I'm gonna sell the meat as a home occupation. So yeah, it happens from time to time. So we just needed to tighten that section up a little bit.
At least they call.
Sometimes we just see signs.
I was like going, you can't miss that one.
Yeah, and sometimes there's, it's come up over the years, since I've been here for a while. Animals, when you put them together, do sometimes just naturally reproduce. And so when what you thought was just going to be 1 or 2 can turn into more than that, and then you're, selling the animals from your residents. Neighbors don't tend to like that. So we did have some updates cleaning up that language. We had some updates for abandoned nuisance and aesthetic nuisance motor vehicles. Again, just trying to be more specific about what is and what isn't a junk vehicle. And then the accumulation of solid waste section was mainly just paring down the amount of solid waste and yard waste items that we allow to accumulate before we require them to abate it. If you let those piles get too big, it sometimes becomes overwhelming for the homeowner to clean up. And then when they go to clean it up, I had one in particular abatement in the last few months where they called me and they told me they needed more time because when they started moving the junk out, surprise, they found a boatload of snakes in there. And so they had to wait until they could get the snake problem resolved and then the junk problem resolved. So we don't want to allow people to get large accumulations of items, solid waste on their property. And then the health and sanitation is a new section. I think Bryant has left, but they have discovered various open wells on vacant properties or properties that used to have a home or some type of a well system. And there's just giant holes in the ground. Animals can and will fall in, children, things like that. So there's just a safety issue. So there's information in there about securing those open wells. We also don't have anything about reducing pooling water, which is a real problem here in North Carolina because of mosquitoes. So if you have buckets or various things out that are gathering stagnant water, some people will have like plant containers just full of water. So those need to be dumped so that we don't have mosquito problems. And then the nuisance abatement section, we notified mainly the notification section and allowing for those properties to be posted. We are required to send a letter and a certified letter. That's really hard to do if the property is abandoned or vacant because there's no one living there. And then people will sometimes refuse to sign for certified letters and then say that they didn't know what was going on. So posting the property is an additional way to get compliance. And so it's harder to say like, well, I didn't know. If we sent you a letter, 2 different letters, and we posted the property.
When you say posted the property, you mean like.
We're gonna put a sign in, yeah. We're gonna order some signs. if approved.
Is that it for?
Yeah, that's the big overview. And so these are all broken up. And so if you all are comfortable discussing and approving some of them tonight, but not all of them, I can come back, we can discuss, it's open. But, and big shout out to Sarah for helping me put this item together. It was a little bit challenging because of all of the ordinances and the updates.
So I think I'd like to ask commissioners if you have any questions about specific things. That's a lot of information. Evelyn, do you have any questions? Matt?
No.
No. Kathleen, is that a no?
Yeah, no, having for a while, I was hearing roosters ad nauseum, and they do not only confine there to the mornings. I am glad to see this.
Yeah, roosters is another one of those challenges where you get them when they're babies and they say that they're sexed and they know what they are, but they don't always turn out to be, which
They also say they only go in like in the mornings. Well, if you
no, they go all day.
They all day, and when the morning starts is
Sunrise.
sun, they don't even need sun.
What's the desire of the board?
Move to approve all the
Second.
ordinances as presented.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you,
Seconded.
Kathleen. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Shane.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay. That takes us to, okay, hot topics. Here.
All right, so in addition to the items that we have listed there, and I'll ask Maribel to jump in, we'd like to add, another item. Since the Communities on the Move program through UNC Chapel Hill that provides the support and a lot of the programming for the Fairview Community Watch and other programs in the area. I think everybody knows their funding eliminated. It gets eliminated in October. So the mayor and I met with the staff today. They were basically, they want to come and provide an update about what they're trying to do funding wise. We'll let them talk about it. And one of the other topics that came up is they're gonna need funding, which I'm using the term bridge funding to help them in the interim. So we can find out longer term solutions, and they'll probably need some longer term solutions that would come up in the budget. But they want to be able to come talk to the board about that. And the mayor and I thought, because October is when their funding runs out, and having them come and talk to us in 2 weeks seemed like it was a high priority. So that's the one item I'd like to add. And
Yeah, because the only other thing I would add to your summary is that the day they found out their funding was going to be cut, they immediately started writing grants. So they're pursuing a number of opportunities to continue the programming in Fairview, and we are one of many things they're pursuing. So but they'll tell us all about that at the work session. Yes.
I was wondering, Matt and I talked about it a little bit, but we have the Corberton Commons litigation mediation coming up October 21st, I think it is. And I think we need to have a closed session to discuss, prepare for that, to get parameters and give the board an update on where we are generally. So, the 22nd or the regular meeting in October are gonna be the only two opportunities between now and the mediation date. So, I don't know whether we want to add it to the 22nd's agenda.
I would ask if we could, only because I have to miss the October 8th, because I will be at the NARC board meeting.
So are you saying that we need to do it at the September work
The
session?
September work session.
I bet we attempt to do that, as you know, the schedule or the proposed agenda is gonna unfold over the next week, but I think that's doable. How much do you need, about 20 minutes, 30 minutes?
Maybe half an hour.
That seems reasonable.
Ultimately, it will depend on what the, how much the board wants to discuss, but I think in half an hour we'll be happy.
Okay, when is the mediation?
The mediation is on October 21st.
Okay, anything else? Good, great. Thank you. Okay, so the new agenda item is Kathleen's request to add breast cancer awareness in October to the banner rotation schedule.
And to be specific, it's painted pink for October. Which includes the, including pink banners. And I'm open to American Cancer Society if they have, because I know that there are banners that are elsewhere. If there's a different design and, knowing that Duke will be approving. Again, I feel I feel strongly about this, especially with the attack on evidence-based science, public health, as well as, just as American Cancer Society uses breast cancer, it is the primary vehicle for all of their activities, their fundraising, their education. It is the door, where women, and because it does impact men, people are getting screened, access to treatment. It is the door to public health. There's so many ones. And I love the idea of Hillsborough being the flagship community in the triangle, leading the charge of truly supporting public health, science-based public health, and with the same vigor as we do with diversity and inclusion.
Good, Kathleen. So I guess where to start this conversation is to acknowledge that you make, and we know about your own history with breast cancer, so you make a good argument, and we appreciate the detail that you have provided, and of course your experience as well. And for those in the audience and those that were watching this online, the challenge for us, the board, is being that we get requests for all kinds of other things. This will be the first healthcare related banner rotation we've ever done. So I think the job tonight is not to say that that's a great cause. That's a great cause. It's to say, how do we manage that versus anything else that might come along? And how do we treat them all fairly or appropriately or proportionately or whatever the case may be?
In my opinion, we've already started choosing. And diversity and inclusion is a town value. But so is evidence-based science and healthcare and public health and accessible healthcare.
Yeah.
And it is way we also honor women. We hit many values. And more importantly to me is it shows the town's commitment to action, that especially underserved women who, with the fall of Roe, when women across are just not getting the care. We take a stand, and through us, lives will be changed, saved. And I think that's really important.
Nobody disagrees.
Right, but I believe we've already taken a stand. We've already started choosing. I'm adding a second one. And I feel as passionately about this as Matt does about this.
So why don't we go around the table and ask Evelyn, how do you feel? What are your thoughts? What are your questions?
She said, I know that we have health, but I know about the health thing. I hate to say this, but I have to get a ride at 10 o'clock, and I've got to go. So I heard what she said, and I agree with her.
So say it again.
I agree with her. I have to be picked up at 10 o'clock, and he's gonna give me a ride, and I need to be at the pharmacy at 10 o'clock.
Okay.
Sorry, I'll try not to do it again.
That's okay. It's late. Thank you, Matt.
All right, making a note to myself. I definitely hear what Commissioner Ferguson is saying. I think that there's, just the way I see, I see these various banners. I think we do need to consider and talk about the rotation in general. I know Mirabelle, one of the things I mentioned is, of course, February is Black History Month. March is Women's History Month. That I'd like to see those types of banners be part of a rotation. And so, I'd like to look to see, for the months where it's clear maybe we have openings based on the current schedule, major patriotic holidays, which I think, well, October does have Indigenous Peoples' Day, but we don't have something for that. That I would want to look at all those different months and see where we could plug things in for months where we can either raise more awareness or tie back to town values and that sort of thing, rather than just the generic Hillsborough banners. So that's my thought.
Thank you. Thank you.
First off, say raising awareness and in cancer, you all know that I've been affected by 2 deaths in my family in this past year due to cancer, and my father-in-law is in treatment right now. So this is something near and dear to my heart also, and awareness and getting early diagnosis is very important. With that being said, I think I was actually thinking similar, and actually some conversations that I had outside in the community was kind of, what's the whole schedule look like? Where's the community conversation around what else are we gonna do in the other months? Are we opening this up to more than we really want to put on public works also? There's that part of it is, how much work are we adding to the town, and cost also, it does go with the cost to do this rotation. So I think I would like a bigger conversation around this, around the whole year. And maybe not just one or two that we do right now besides the days for. Those are my first thoughts as coming into this.
Well, can I ask something though? Because we've already chosen, I'm all for a group discussion, but we've already granted a commissioners something important. I would like that same privilege.
Yeah. We have discussed, she discussed it well. Never mind, go ahead, I've got to go.
Okay, you can leave.
Well, go ahead and.
Okay. Matt has a question.
Not a question, but what you just said sparked something which I know we've spoken about, like the America 250. And I don't know what we want or where staff is, that looking behind, like there's someone behind it that can weigh in on that, but because we know the review process, I think it would make sense to wrap it all in so that we can get a few of those at least approved that, maybe a little bit earlier in the calendar. But if it's something that we want to consider for next October, because the approval schedule that we can submit a raft of these to do rather than the piecemeal. Because the other thing I would be concerned about is Duke saying, oh, we got this one, but we didn't get that one. But maybe it's the one that they claim they didn't get is the more time sensitive one. So that's one reason I would be wanting to do them as a lump them all into a conversation so we can submit, get designs done, that sort of thing, and
We did discuss that when we did the first flag and we didn't do it. Again, I just asked for the same courtesy that we did with the pride flags. And I do agree, we need to have a calendar, but for fourth, I'd like to have the same courtesy.
So Matt, I hear you saying something like yes and.
Potentially.
So I'm just continuing around the table. I have a question for staff. Can we even do this by October?
I'll let Matt answer, so.
Very unlikely. So there are 15 working days left between now and October 1st. To get the banners designed, design approved, ordered, received, and we don't currently have equipment to hang them up. We have to rent the equipment. To get all that done for October is going to be difficult. I wouldn't want to commit to that.
Okay.
Can we commit for next October?
If the board decides then yeah, we have plenty of time to prepare for that for next year.
And I do see where staff is offered some other options for this year.
Right. Yeah, let me backtrack into that particular part of the conversation. That is, so I think what is going to happen, I'm not saying this is a bad thing, I'm saying this is the result that we will have to navigate going forward, is that we will have more requests to do these things. And if we're going to create a second pathway to recognizing worthy things, other than banners, because they're expensive, they're administrative headache, staff have to do it, it's a lift. What else can we do? And Matt had made some suggestions how the town could, to use Matt's phrase, show our community values. So there are other ways we can essentially market those things in addition to banners. And then once I got to that kind of realization in my thought process, it made me, this is just me, it's the way I think. That is, it made me want to know, what is the big picture and what is the process going to be to have these conversations, vote to approve these things, and how do we do those things? So it's just going to trigger a larger question about how do we do this? Anyway, so I'm not saying that I came to any conclusion about how do we do this, just that is the natural conclusion, because we already get these things. I get them on a regular basis. As the mayor, on the lightning rod. So anyway, that is what will happen. So I just wanted to be able to have a discussion with the board that helps answer that question of all of the different worthy causes. How do we review them? How do we accept them? How do we implement them? The one thing that I would like to see would be an annual review, not ad hoc reviews. And that review should be like in the spring. That gives everybody time to kind of figure out the budget implications so that we can factor that in to the budget cycle, just because, the banners are expensive. I don't know how much they were couple $100 a piece.
Yes.
And how many do we have?
30 something.
Okay, so it's not a small amount of money. Anyway, so those are the thoughts on my mind, not at all is your cause not worthy.
Understand that, and we set a precedent with the pride flag.
Yeah, you've said that like 6 times. I got
I
it.
know, yep, and I'll do it a 7th time.
Okay, right. Anyway, but it got me to thinking about my own causes that are near and dear to me: brain tumors and multiple sclerosis, and these kinds of things. So, what are the guardrails? So we can have a public conversation and invite residents to give us their feedback. Right.
So yeah, this is challenging. My mom's was a breast cancer survivor. I have a cousin that passed away from breast cancer, 50 something. I have 2 daughters. I have one sibling who's my sister. I am all for raising awareness for breast cancer awareness or any kind of cancer. How we do that, I think there's many ways that we can do that. American buy big staff shirts, and everybody wears, staff shirts in October. I'm not saying to do that. That's just one idea. So I think we need to think about how we can get behind get behind things that are important to our community. And I don't think it necessarily has to be a banner. Our whole banner thing, I'm all for, again, looking at our banner schedule. And working with staff to figure out how we can make that functional. Not opposed to a pink banner in October. But I also want to, you know, think of other ways that we can shine a light on that cause, whatever it is. So I think it's important for us to, you know, get a handle on our schedule and the amount of staff time it takes to put those up and down. And maybe there's a better way to hang a banner. Maybe it doesn't have to be on a pole. I don't know.
If we make, there are some suggestions of what other communities have done. For example, Cary lit up a building.
I can't hear you. Could you please speak to my phone? Thank you.
Yeah, I love that. I
Yeah,
love
there's a couple of options. In fact, one of our favorites in Raleigh Police Department, we have a pink badge. that
Yeah, there
officers
you go.
wear. In the town of Cary, one weekend, we lit up the one of the buildings pink. So, and we could do that on October 25th. So, I understand where you're coming from. There's a lot of wonderful causes. And it opens up a can of worms. You do know the guardrails, and I'm also no runway and bandwidth. Or and I'm the first guy, I hate to rush stuff, you know, so. If you're open to some kind of alternate idea like the badges, we can supply those to the pink light and then allow us an opportunity to think about 2026. And that'll allow you all to have a cadence of other banners and get that process down. But if there's an opportunity, you know, it's like mom always say, you never know yes, so here I am.
And because I'm like, this is so, if y'all are happy and you can make it work where we are pink, the town pink. I can be behind that.
I would love to have the town support. We already have so many businesses support. So, and we did bring packets. There's a plethora of things that the American Cancer Society does that I didn't know. And I'm a 7-year cancer survivor now. So, I think education, the resources that it brings to our community, it goes beyond rideshare. I mean,
Yeah, I actually
when you have cancer,
want to share.
cancer affects everything and everything affects cancer. And we have, cancer patients with food insecurity, just a plethora of things that brings resources to our community. The studies being done on the
Firefighters.
Right. And black women, you know,
and indigenous.
Black women are 50% more likely to pass from breast cancer, and therefore we have started a study called Voices of Black Women, which is a generational study where we look at everything in the lifestyle of the Black women, and we try to figure out why. And the folks that enter the study can't have a history of cancer. So we look at diet, exercise, environment, systematic racism, and again, it's generational. Once we figure it out, but yeah, all our information is there, and I know we're running real late too, so. I don't know what the process looks like as far as often our ideas that are low lift. But if you would consider that, and we'll do the heavy lifting this time of year, as far as if we, a badge thing, we've already got badges done. Pink light, I'm not an engineer, but I imagine it's not as simple as putting in a pink light bulb, but I guess we're pretty close, so. Anyway, I don't know what our process looks like either, how you submit ideas, but we'll do the heavy lifting this year if you consider us in 2026.
So if I can summarize, what I hear is a consensus on exploring the schedule in general, alternative ways to recognize things that are, in line with our community values. And that there just isn't time to get it done in the next 15 working days for this October. What else am I missing?
Will this board support Plan B of the badges aligned this year.
You already have badges.
Alright.
Hey, talking to the chief though.
They'll be very supportive.
I appreciate it. Yeah, they're really cool, this alternative Velcro, so.
Okay. I think that's just one example.
Yeah.
You know, that, small. Not too small.
So I think it'd be a good idea for the board to receive a motion to set a time frame to discuss the schedule and how do we solicit community input and all these things.
I want to first a motion about agreeing, like to move that we support.
That's the first part. The second part is, and doing everything else.
Oh, I was gonna do those two motions. If you want one, okay, whatever. Okay, anyhow, I'll move that we do the pink badges, the light, and we set up we have a meeting dedicated either at the retreat or prior to the retreat to discuss the banner rotation.
I mean, the budget retreat for next year.
Yes.
Yeah, that should be plenty of time. Yes, and Sarah, do we already do a resolution for proclamation for cancer awareness of breast cancer, that part of our year? So you can definitely submit your request in September, and then we'll get it processed, so we
Can you
can,
get me a resolution
and we can,
well, we can do that by the next meeting.
yes.
By
It
the
should be
next-
this October.
As in,
Just
before the 20, actually, we need it by, when does the agenda for the, for our next meeting?
So
Thursday before.
What date?
Next Monday.
So can you do it before next Monday?
Sure, the official resolution,
Enough time that I can share in case we need to do any kind of tweaks.
sure. Acknowledging just support. Is that
yes,
correct?
and kind of the relevance to Hillsborough.
Oh, okay.
I mean, we can help
Right,
do that part. I expect you probably have a generic template
Sure.
for that you.
that'd be wonderful in the country. And perhaps here, come back next meeting, I'll have some of the badges, we can do kind of the official. And those are badge in there, so.
Yes.
But thank you for the privilege of your time, really.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion, do we have a
Still
second?
invited to wear pink because it is a minute pink.
We have a motion from Kathleen, a second from Rob to do those things that Kathleen outlined in her motion. Any more discussion? All in favor?
All right.
Any opposed? Okay,
Thank you,
very
thank you,
much.
thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
okay, updates. So I've refined my process and here are all the meetings that I know took place that there is a report for them. So the first one is Kathleen, Central Pines.
Hang on just a second, so.
Sorry, that's very.
So for, actually, because I have a few. The Central Pines, first of all, today is the last day for the member survey. So if you have not done that, please do so. Lee Worsley has been it's on the road with Lee and all of the visits, so he's been in Chatham County, Lee County primarily. Working his way around the triangle. It's nice that we've heard a little bit about in the traffic study. One of the things that we've been doing at CPRC is the transportation demand program, which has been even though the feds pulled a lot of their support and the triangle still remains very strong. So I'm excited about the prospect of us being able to participate in ways that we have not been able to. And I will be out October the 8th because I will be at the National Association of Regional Councils board meeting. And I will probably be facilitating strategic plan stress testing. I'm really excited. It'll be the same day I technically graduate. RTI, I've already passed, but it's the official. Your real day.
Thank you. And local government, affordable housing collaborative.
Yes, we did meet, we went through, let me pull it up, because I do this, we, adopted, our ARPA plan on the funding that we'd already had planned for. We adopted, the 5-year. I can't pull it up fast enough, Matt, help me,
So the two actions were taken were amend the CAPER,
I was going.
and it has to do with some changing federal requirements on diversity language. And then the second item was a substantial amendment to the trying to remember the funding source, the home art funds.
The art funds.
To reprogram those for tenant-based rental assistance away from real estate development. So those were the two actions.
And we talked about, we also showed the, we also went through how the monies have been spent. So it was there's the report that says what we're gonna do, and then we received the report of what we did, so how monies were actually spent.
Thank you. Matt, Orange Care Coalition?
Yeah, so the Orange Care Coalition is the new iteration of FSA. It's morphed a lot, I think, since I was initially appointed, where it was more of an advisory council, and then it was like a mailing list of like 100 people on a Zoom call. I fell off the list. Anyway, we finally met, and frankly, first time I've ever met in person with this group. Last Thursday, which was good. Various governmental stakeholders. I think we had city school system represented by a board member, county was, Hillsborough was, I feel like there was one other elected official who was there. So that was really good. County, nonprofit, Boomerang, which has a presence here. And I think Hillsborough is going to be their only presence in Orange County. They're consolidating both of their locations, but it was a really good opportunity just to get to know folks. We did a few icebreakers. We got updates from the county and community stakeholders, particularly around support services for folks who are both using principally narcotics and that being co-occurring with another health condition and getting them into housing. Because if they're solely using it, it's not connected, then it's not a disability. And even though under the ADA, drug dependence is a disability. So it was very interesting. I feel like we did a lot in those 2 hours of just getting updates and really kind of starting a new chapter, I guess you could say. But it was very well attended. I think total 35 of us, which was really good. I think even when it was a small group, previously, I don't think there was that much participation relative to what it was last Thursday. Maybe it helps being in person, serving food, serving coffee. It's a good way to get folks in. But I think it will be great to see how those things how this group continues to evolve. And I think it's a lot more holistic than just looking at the 2 FSA zones. FSA is part of it, but it's part of a bigger coalition.
What's the name of the group before the Orange Care Coalition?
Family Success Alliance. They had 2 zones, one's Gateway, and the other is around Northside Elementary.
Thank you, Matt. So I went to the Triangle West Transportation Planning Organization, formerly DCACMPO, and multiple things on the agenda that day, but worth mentioning tonight are we received a report on the SPOT process, an update on that, and that's the strategic prioritization of transportation. It's a data-driven approach for ranking projects across all of North Carolina. The SPOT cycle that we're in, the upcoming SPOT cycle is the 8th iteration, and these are identifies things that will be funded in 2028 through 2037, the state transportation improvement. And then we also got a third report out from the Metropolitan Planning Transportation Plan, MTP. And that is the coordinated master plan for what things are going to look like by 2050 for Triangle West plus Campa, the capital area metropolitan planning organization. So we had a meeting in April about it, and we also talked about it in June as well. So this draft was presented also at the technical review committee, and they've been gathering feedback from all these reports and folding it into the MTP plan.
Did they talk about, I know that Lee was on a panel discussion of consolidating the MSA, because the triangle is in two MSAs. We've got,
I don't recall if that came up
okay,
or not. Yeah.
because
Not sure.
there's a bigger push to try to consolidate because we're losing out on some,
Right, yeah. We look smaller than.
yes, we would be number, the numbers, we'd be number 30. I think it's 31. It's either 23 or 32. I get the numbers reversed. It would substantially move us up to truly reflect the size of the area that we are.
And I can tell one other thing worth mentioning about the NTP is that in terms of recommended allocations for vehicle modes, we're looking at 13% for bike ped, 30% for roadway, 30% for roadway maintenance and operations, and then 27% for mass transit. Which is a pretty good mix compared, considering that normally it's maybe 80 or 90% asphalt and concrete, and the rest of it, everything else. So what our vision is that's how we need to accomplish the goals that we want them to be. That's the mix of funding that we need to do. That's it.
Is that funding, but is that's the wish list, not that we've identified funding streams for?
Correct. This is all just, it flows up to NCDOT.
Yeah.
Right.
I do not have anything to report on. So Parks and Recreation will meet next week. Climate Council will meet in October, and intergovernmental parks work will be November. So I'll share tonight.
Yeah, thank you. Kathleen, do you have any other miscellaneous?
Yes, we do. So, for the partnership to end homelessness, there's going to be a listening session, which is September 10th at the County Commissioners Room at the Southern Human Services Center, 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. And it's specifically for housing and homelessness services providers. It's something that you can, certainly listen, not participate, but listen to, and that is informative. There is a COC, which is your Continuum of Care Governance 101 training, which is opening to anyone to better understand continuum of care. And the continuum of care is a technical term. It has two meanings to make it even more confusing. Big picture, it is the mechanism by which the partnership to end homelessness goes through the process of applying for funding, and which the funding is released, very simplistically. That is 2 to 3:30, September 10th, and that actually is going to be a Teams meeting. If you're interested, let me know, and I can send you information. You can reach out. Also, there is a community-wide town hall to discuss the state of homelessness in Orange County and how people can participate. There is a registration. You don't have to, but it's requested. Thursday, September 11th, 2:30 to 4 p.m. at Drakeford Library's multipurpose room, which is in Carborough. And it's also going to be streamed on Facebook Live. My understanding is that Hillsborough Police Department is also gonna be doing something. I would highly, highly encourage them to attend this or somehow coordinate so that we're not duplicating. You know, yes,
Yeah, so, the mission of our meeting is gonna be completely different.
okay,
It's just addressing the, downtown businesses.
gotcha, thank
Yeah,
you.
but yes, and, I'll see, our social worker, will probably want to attend the.
Yeah, somebody, cause I'm sure there's gonna be questions that may have greater information to help you guys. And so we also, I think I mentioned, I can't remember, we did have our funding conversation and it's just very difficult. Our funding, for coming down for HUD on homelessness, there's two of them, there's the emergency services grants and then there's the HUD piece. We had $49,000 for this grant, it was ridiculously low. Orange County, we have a challenge because we have sole providers for these key services. Not enough money, 49,000 doesn't do anything. We ended up, the vote was to put it into the TBRA, which is the tenant-based rental assistance. Rather than IFC, we wanted to do both. It's no splitting the baby, doesn't help. But we, as a county, we've really got to come to grips that we have sole providers. And our homelessness services, IFC, they've got some real, it's not sustainable. We need a broader conversation, yet they are the only ones that are providing permanent supportive housing, transitional housing, the housing for women's shelter, the food, the food kitchen. They need funding. We have not addressed as a county adequately how we're going to meet these needs as not only within our own borders, but especially with what's happening at fed and state levels, because we are just not getting the funding. And the needs are getting higher and higher. So something, I know that it's come up occasionally, with the mayors. I would anticipate it will keep coming up, but Mark, if you can kind of keep that in the back of your head, because we as a municipality will be approached, by IFC at some point, for real reasons. And their services, in addition to the partnership with homelessness and what they're doing, we've got some serious crisis in some foundational services in the county.
Anything else?
I mentioned October 8th, and there probably is, but I can't think of any.
Matt, do you have any other non-committee?
Oh, the housing, I think I'm registered now. Thank you. All right, that's it.
Oh, the day-long session.
Yes, and ALC I think I'm the only one did you go through ALC? So, this week is we're gonna get their courses, refresher, ambassador, that's the 11th, Thursday and Friday.
Yes, I'm doing that as well, and I did have the opportunity to attend some of the America 250 programming around the Third Provincial Congress, which was really great. A lot of buzzing activity around town. I know the two kind of lectures I went to, it was standing room only, very well done in the museum. I think got a fairly significant grant to help do that. So America 250 is already here, at least in Hillsborough, and I'm excited for what other organizations in the town does to recognize that momentous occasion.
Do they plan to do more events also, or is that just their one big?
Kathleen's on that board, not me.
there's a lot more activities that are coming. This third provincial congress was really the first.
Okay, that's what I thought, yeah, I just want.
But no, that the big stuff that is, in fact, in terms of this activity was planned before 250, and as it turns out, this turns out to be a nice kickoff.
Matt, anything else?
That's it.
Megan, do you have any other reports?
Last week I attended the Orange County Food Security Leaders Meeting where we had updates on how federal law is going to affect the SNAP benefits in our area. It's just not good. There's gonna be a lot more cost sharing that the state and the county will have to pick up. And it's gonna be a pretty big math challenge for next year's budget, which this would be coming into effect in late 2026. But just to, to remind all of us here, like 12% of the population of Orange County is living in poverty, and of our Orange County schools, 49% of the students qualify for free and reduced lunch. And Hillsborough residents are in 3 of those schools that are at 79%. So just to throw those stats out again, so it's in our mind what we're looking at for our residents in Port Hillsborough and in the county. That's all I got. It wasn't great news. It wasn't a great meeting, I have to say.
Sounds depressing.
Yeah.
I have 3 things to report. One is, went to spoke at the, Freedom House, Adapt ribbon cutting program on September the 4th, a huge turnout. And there were elected from multiple bodies and multiple stakeholders and, great information from young people. And so it was really nice. And, I know that Megan was there and Rob was there and Matt, were you there? So it was wonderful. So they opened up a new space, for teens, interns, that are in this program. There are, I think, 15 interns that get paid to do this program. And it's remarkably similar to the kind of the quality and efficacy, of UNC's program in Fairview. It's just really, it's really great. So it was very nice to be there and part of that. And then I did spoke to a civics, group of 4 classes of 3rd graders on the 5th, and that's always fun. The questions are always the best. They ask. And then I too attended the 3rd Provincial Congress Information session on was that Saturday? And a fascinating thing, they did a really, really great job on that, and I hope that we could be that successful when we do our picnic, Matt. So and I saw Matt there too, so I hope you picked up some good ideas. That's it. Rob, do you have anything else? Okay, all right. Eric, anything? Words of wisdom? Okay, right. Do a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Kathleen, is that a second?
I did.
Okay, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any questions? Thank you. Have a good night.